Hey everybody, this is Hunter Williams. I hope you're doing amazing wherever you're at in the world. I am super excited today because we have an incredible guest that needs no introduction. His name is Alex Kikel. If you haven't heard of him and you're watching our stuff, you probably have heard of him, but you need to go look him up. Alex, thank you for being here today. Both Taylor and I are extremely excited to get to talk to you. And I know the people listening are extremely excited because we're going to talk about some very cutting edge stuff heading into 2026, what is out there and what we can potentially do to help improve our health and everything. But Alex, thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
Just love you guys so much. Love being here. Appreciate you having me. Like, it's just cool. You know,
it is.
There's a fun workout earlier. Get to see the house, see the dogs. Like, it's cool to get a little look into your lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you.
It's so funny because so many people will ask us so much like, are you involved with Alex? Do you know Alex? I'm like, Alex is our brother. Like, he's our family. Yes, we know Alex. So it's so great to be together.
Well, and I personally have gotten multiple requests to have Alex to do shows together. So even better than doing a live stream or online stream is to have you here in person. First thing, let's just talk about, because we've been talking about this kind of all day. We're in an EMF soup right now because we have our podcast studio that has like 20 Wi-Fi devices and everything. Now we do have a blue shield that hopefully is mitigating some of those negative frequencies coming from the Wi-Fi, but you were talking about some pretty cool stuff earlier. Let's just take your house on a daily basis at home. What for you and your family do you have right now that you think is really beneficial to help with some of the negative things coming from EMF?
So we actually can't start there
for
a specific reason, but it starts the whole conversation.
Okay.
So when we built our new house, right, we wanted it to be like our Mecca, our paradise.
Yeah.
So I thought, cool. Okay. I'm going to deck it out. Every square inch can be covered in quantum blocks. Because that was kind of like, you know, back there was the original introduction for me.
Right.
For managing all these non-coherent EMFs. We'll talk about terminology too.
Yeah.
But set up like 7 blocks everywhere.
Yeah.
And for a month, no one could sleep. Everyone had way too much energy, but everyone felt incredible.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because we're all sleep deprived, but like, and this is the dogs, this is the kids. And so there's very unbiased, like I knew what was going on. Lindsay didn't because she doesn't believe in half this stuff.
Yeah.
And the dogs and the kids, like they really don't know. And then we finally adapted. I realized, okay, I did this way too fast. It's definitely a stepping process. And that's why I can't really start with what we're doing because I think everyone does have to slowly graduate up from that.
Yeah.
It's tough. Let's take a step back to understand all this stuff. So you have all these different waves, right? So if you have an electrical wave, that electrical pattern will create a magnetic field. So if you have like a couple different waves, you have more like transverse waves and more like scalar longitudinal waves. Transverse waves, let's say they're like more jaggedy, right? Those are going to be oscillating essentially up and down. Whereas those longitudinal scalar waves are going to be more side to side. So as you are creating that electrical field, say energy comes into your house and then goes through, hits the whatever kitchen appliance, around that electrical outlet, it's going to form a magnetic field. So the electricity and the magnetic dynamics have to always be there. The reason why that's important is because you can really separate these into coherent and non-coherent fields. So we talk about coherence. Think of coherence as like the healthy stuff. Like that means cells are communicating, mitochondria are firing properly. Like coherence is good, right? That's a healthy cell. Non-coherence or incoherence is kind of the state of chaos, disorder. If you look at it from like a geometry standpoint, that's more 90-degree angles. We said before, that's more cancer cells. That's more things that we do not like. Those chaotic, noisy things. That's the dirty electricity coming off your walls, right? It's coming out. And if you actually would listen to it, like from an audio-based aspect, it sounds like scratchy nails on a chalkboard. Like, don't like that. Yeah. Versus you hear a more coherent field and it sounds like it should. It sounds like a normal noise. It's not chaotic. It's not unstructured in nature. It doesn't hurt your ears to listen to. The reason why I got to start with all that is because we're trying to understand what we're trying to manage here. So we're essentially trying to look more at non-coherent EMF because electromagnetic fields are coming from the earth, from the sun, from the stars, from everything. So we're trying to look at that first and foremost. Now, another thing too, because we'll talk about peptides and everything later on, right? It's not about the strength as much as it is the pattern and the frequency. So as we're talking right now, right, in terms of like a pressure-based standpoint, this is more like talking about like a millipascal, like that's like that amount of pressure. Yeah. Whereas in the atmosphere above us, it's about what, like 100 kilopascals. So the atmosphere is like 1 billion times stronger, but you can't hear the atmosphere. Yeah. You can hear me talk.
Yeah.
So it's not about the strength. It's about the pattern, the frequency. And so that's where this whole conversation of the difference between 5G, 4G, positive, negative, we'll say, it's really non-coherent and coherent EMF.
Yeah.
Because the EMF we're getting from the sun, from the earth, is all positive. So we're trying to manage the non-coherent EMF. And that's where it takes us to the conversation now where, okay, what can we do to mitigate that? There's active, there's passive, and there's more dynamic devices. So the Blue Shield, shout out to Brandon. Brandon's the man,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Brandon's awesome.
He's so cool. And he really knows his stuff with this.
Yeah.
His is more active and dynamic. So the way the Blue Shield works is it's basically putting out the sets of frequency. So again, he did it really cool. We won't get too much into like Fibonacci sequences and things like that and like golden geometry and phi ratios, but he has it set up so it's spitting out different frequencies that are variable every time. Same way nature does that. So you go outside, it's never the same frequency repeated. It's always variable patterns.
Yeah.
So his device, Blue Shield, it's back there, pointing back
right
there.
behind it. Yeah.
It's putting out those frequencies so that we basically don't hear the frequencies coming off of everything in this room.
Yeah.
So that's more like it's working in an active way to do that, but also dynamically because it's changing with the environment. Whereas a lot of things, like when you're traveling and you have, let me bring it out, the whole heel capsule, the AIRS technology, these are more what I define as more passive devices.
Yeah.
Where you have fractal antennas or you have geometry of all these different things, or like the quantum nature of like Leela, where they're starting like stack generators and they can just geographically locate, entangle, and basically change that incoherent to coherent fields.
Yeah.
These obviously are working differently. These are more on the passive side of things. Now that's still cool. They're all beneficial. To me, I don't think there's one that's better than another. Now it obviously depends. Like for a whole room, this isn't going to do much.
Yeah. It's just
That
right
device
next to
does.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like a quantum block or the quantum upgrade or the LFE.
Focus, life, force, energy.
I always screw up. I always mix them around.
Too many similar letters right next to each other.
Exactly. FLFE, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All of those, as you kind of work up orders of magnitude, what do we say? The strength also doesn't matter. It's about the pattern, the frequency.
Yeah.
So over the years, I found the combination of all of them, starting low and then building up, tends to work better for everyone.
Yeah.
Because we're not just looking at like what's happened now, but to me, it's that cellular imprint to what's happened to us for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think for most people, start off with something simple. Buy a Blue Shield for the house. Just get one, put it in, see it respond. Or buy a quantum block, see it respond. Give that time, and you'll start picking up on the little things. You'll notice sleep will be easier.
Yeah.
Energy production will be easier. And then little things fall from that. Libido, fat loss, like slowly little things feel better and you feel happier. Stress feels less stressful.
Yeah.
And from there, I think you graduate up. And then eventually, the original question, like what's in my house, it's everything.
Yeah.
Like just talked to Brandon the other day. We're going to have that decked out with Blue Shield.
Yeah.
We have all the Leela quantum stuff, the FLFE, got it right that time. Like all that stuff's decked out, but it's a slow, gradual process, or else you do get overstimulated because ATP production just dumps out like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this because we were talking about the focus, life, force, energy. Basically, they can measure where it would be the Hawkins scale of consciousness, where like a location, or even I've heard of them measuring like the population in general, like can vibrate at a certain level. For people that don't know what that means, basically like you have a scale of consciousness. If you look up David Hawkins' map of consciousness, it's basically like from 0, which would be like the lowest vibration, shame, fear, to 1,000, which would be like the highest vibration possible, I guess, like in a human body. But Alex was telling this because I think they measured your house, right? Do you think that what something like a house or a location vibrates at has to do with the EMF? Meaning, let's say Taylor and I, because this is very important to us right now, want to create an environment for our children that they're born into that vibrates at a high level. And this is not like woo-woo, it kind of sounds woo-woo, but if we want to create the environment that like vibrates at the highest level for our child to come into, obviously emotions are very important, but that obviously lifestyle and everything is very important to like what your location would vibrate at. But how much do you think like the negative EMFs actually affect like the vibration of a house? And do you think like when they were measuring that at your house, probably that played a role in like how well it measured it?
Tremendously. I hate to say it, but like blanket statement, any cellular process will be improved or made worse by non-coherent or coherent EMFs. And I'm trying to stay away from the good and bad, like the baby terms. Cause
it's all there, right? Like it's all there. It's all part of life. It just happens to be like in the case of a 5G tower, it's a different frequency that is not what is more native to us.
Yeah.
That's exactly, I always use the example. This isn't exactly right, but it kind of gets the point across.
Yeah.
Sweet potato versus donut. That sweet potato, yeah, it has vitamins and minerals and fiber and cool stuff. But the way its molecules are spinning or resonating at a subatomic and subquantum level are more cohesive with our biology, our body knows what to do with it. Versus the donut, basically dyes, artificial colors, flavors, sweeteners, all that stuff. Like, okay, we ate that, but it's resonating differently. It's more incoherent, so we eat it. Body doesn't know what to do with it. It obviously figures it out, but the same thing happens with structured and unstructured water. So normal bottled water, dead water, that doesn't have any kind of pulling apart to try and come back together. It's not the pulling apart, it's the coming back together that actually structures it and orders it. Right?
Yeah.
We drink that water, our mitochondria, our cells restructure it. But that's ATP you waste trying to restructure it. Versus drinking your water that's already ordered and structured, it already knows what to do with it.
Yeah.
So you can figure it out. Our bodies obviously figure it out. People are still living to be 80 plus without doing any of this stuff. But like, we're not here. Like, no one listening cares about just living to 80.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be 100 plus and vibrant and healthy.
Yeah.
And that's where I think all this comes in. If anyone's listening and you just want to be like 80 years old and then pass, that's cool, do you. But like, that's not what this conversation's about.
Yeah.
And so you cycle that back to the whole world of gestation and pregnancy and going back to the angulature. Like, if you look at and it's super cool, but the angulature of like a baby being born, those cells and the cells of tumors are almost identical, meaning 90-degree angles. You look at the architecture, it's pretty similar. So you're seeing kind of the life cycle and the polarity of life and death being the same. Wow. So technically something that could be killing you as a tumor, kind of the same cluster of environments nucleically that is there whenever you're building a baby.
Wow.
So taking that back to the magnetic conversation, we were trying to pull all the stress we can off of our cells and form coherent cells. So if you can imagine these cells, right? Where, and Brandon always says stacked polar lipid, so I'm stealing that from Brandon, right? So stacked polar lipid, you have hydrophilic, lipophilic end, and electrons that'll flux back and forth. As your cells, mitochondria, communication goes down, they get less healthy, that flux doesn't happen as well. That cell membrane becomes more rigid. It starts holding in these endotoxins and never dumping them out. And so you get these fragile, dysfunctional cells that can't flux an electron. They can't really do much besides hold on to that resonant state, which is that's an incoherent state. And so if you're trying to get like as healthy as possible, you look more at cellular coherence. That's where all this magnetism work comes in. That's where the PEM technology comes in. It's all coming back to this.
Yeah.
So fertility wise, if you're trying to build a bicep or build your glutes or build a baby, like it's all pretty similar. Baby's obviously more important than some biceps and glutes, but like you got to have all of the raw constituents there in place.
Yeah.
So I think this is like, and I'm terrible with analogies, but I think this might work. Like the house, right? If you don't have the baseline structure, right? If you don't have the foundation built, everything on top could work, but eventually it's going to fall over.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So to me, the magnetism, the electric, the water, that's all like the baseline stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. It's very similar to how like we explain and talk to people about using like SLU PP332 and having bad mitochondria. And like, you don't want to start something like that and spin unhealthy mitochondria without going in and first treating and healing the mitochondria. So it's interesting how that kind of ties back in.
Yeah.
It's funny because as kids, like, aren't we kind of taught, like, kind of baseline up, like be a good person, do the right thing, work hard, have fun. And it's like everyone's trying to build your foundations, your basics. I think we become adults and we forget because we can go to the sexy stuff. Especially in like this, like the longevity peptide community, it's the next thing and the next thing. And I get it. This stuff's super fun. But like if those foundational pieces aren't there, whether you believe them or not, just try it out. And you'll see right away, all of a sudden your peptides work better. You lose fat faster. Your relationship is better because you're more attracted to your partner. Orgasms feel better, sleeps better. Like you name it, things just slowly improve because you're taking care of the basic things that make you a human.
With structured water, do you have any devices that you use to structure water in your house? And what are those?
Biggest fan of natural action.
Okay.
So the original guy who I first heard about it was Jonathan Butts. And he was one of those guys where for me, I personally learned so much from him indirectly. Only ever heard him on podcasts. He sadly passed since then, but Todd Shipman introduced me to that whole crowd. And he knew things about water that I didn't think anyone else knew. Like I thought certain things, but I never heard anyone verbalize them until I heard him. And I thought, okay, I connect with this guy. I get that. And I wish he was still alive because I'd love to talk with him. But if you look at natural action, the way they're doing it is really cool. So we're going back to how things are done in nature, right? So let's kind of pull back a little bit. We have sun, we have earth, right? So sun is giving off all these different kinds of cosmic energies. It's giving off all these cool bits of electromagnetism. Earth, iron core, is basically spinning, resonating, and creating that field around it, right? If you look at the cells in our body, what are they doing? They're spinning. They have a nucleus, a core, and they're creating what? A magnetic field around them, electromagnetic field around them. What's happening with water? The exact same thing. So you kind of look at like we as humans compared to nuclear reactors, compared to the earth and that sun, and it's all like exactly the same. Earth's mainly water, we're mainly water. The structuring process is also very similar. So it's more happening from spinning of ATPase in mitochondria versus happening in nature. So in nature, coming out from the top of the mountain, hitting over the rocks, picking up minerals and things like that, it's that left and right spin that everyone talks about. And again, you say like the woo-woo world, right?
Yeah.
But like the energetic world, it's looking at masculine and feminine energies. So the cool part about that is as it's pulling the water apart, it's not the pulling apart that matters. Water's trying to come back together. So it's that implosive versus explosive physics that no one really cares about anymore. So as it's pulling back together, it's ordering and structuring the water in a way that allows it to pick up and carry information and minerals, sequester toxins, and all that stuff. So it's cool because if you actually look at this under like a dark microscope, so if you freeze it, you can see the clear difference between like the snowflake frozen structured water and the disordered, like just dead water.
Yeah.
Right?
Fluoride
And how music
infested
can
tap
play.
water.
Yeah. And music can play a difference too.
Yeah,
with
even
that,
speaking. Because what we just talk about with the millipascals, right? Although that's pressure, you're still having vibrations that are coming off.
Yeah.
And you can prove that just by like, if I were to start screaming at you right now, you'd probably be like, what the? Like, you'd feel the energetic change. Right? So just your voice and that pressure and the resonant state changes also has an impact on water.
Yeah.
And remember, like everyone knows the old studies where like, they said like, I love you to water. And then, like it actually did make
like
it
made it more coherent.
More coherent.
Yeah, the pictures are crazy. It's like they played like death metal, and it was like fractured, probably like right 90-degree angles in there. And then the other ones are like look like a perfect snowflake. You know,
and that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so like Natural Action, the way they do it, they have a portable unit, a house unit. We're about to actually get installed the entire house unit, where it will structure it, filter it, add hydrogen to it. Like they have a bunch of cool stuff. So it depends. Like everything we're talking about today, degree of budget.
Yeah.
Like the cheapest portable unit is $200. That's what I believe all their testing was done on.
Yeah.
And all the tests are amazing.
Yeah.
As you go up, you can get the under the sink after the RO unit because you don't do it before the RO or kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Or you have the whole house unit. Or you have the shower heads and things like that. But basically, the rough mechanics of all of them is that they have that chamber and they have these lipofullerene spheres, right? So geometrically, they are so perfect. The mathematics he worked out going back more, I believe, more 5 ratios and cool stuff like that, right? The water will come in vortex. It'll spin under and lap over itself. So like the geometry of houses with a lot of 60-degree angles where energy can fold over itself, the same thing happens in water.
Yeah.
So you can essentially create almost like a void of energy in there while it's picking up everything from the lipofullerenes. So what he did, which again, I think is just really cool, is they have a lot of minerals and elements from the North and South Pole because they're trying to create, like try to make like a little mini Earth in there.
Yeah.
So the water can actually have the vortexian spin, can create that void, can pick up on a charge or create its own charge, can structure itself and can pick up and remineralize.
Yeah.
If you do that, it will sequester any toxins in the water automatically. So plastics, mercury, like things like that.
Yeah.
And so Natural Action is easily my favorite company.
I would be obviously for drinking. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But think about like hair.
Yeah,
How much of you wash your hair?
Yeah.
Now, because like we have it's like a community well here, but we noticed changing. House we moved from had tap water. Obviously, your hair responds, skin responds differently than that to well water. So we drink spring water out of bottles that we drink, but then you think how much of the other water in your house is probably got some treatment to it. Who knows?
And we use the oxygen tub too. So like think about like we're like soaking in that oxygen tub.
Yeah, if you're opening up your pores
and we're putting that in.
So you're getting the oxygen nanobubbles, but there's probably also some like less coherent form of that water.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too about carbogenetics and basically the way I've heard you say it, because I love that device. I haven't really talked about it that much, but basically you're inhaling CO2. It's kind of like CO2 therapy. And that's actually, you've said, structuring the water inside of us. Can you talk about that and how important that is?
Carbogenetics, again, favorite brand, love it. I always try and promote good people, good products. You have to have both.
Yeah.
So if I mention on this podcast or any podcast, it's good people, good products.
Yeah.
So Steve, the owner over there, awesome dude, as you guys know.
Yeah.
With inhalable carbon dioxide, it's funny because it kind of They were doing, who was it? They started doing the under the pool training to train their breathing to increase how they're handling carbon dioxide. I forget who was doing it, but it was like the next wave in longevity, which is still awesome.
Yeah.
You can also inhale it, improve carbon dioxide tolerance. You can also do it with breath holds. All amazing. This is more the machine version. So essentially the good old Bohr effect, BOHR, that is how oxygen delivery happens. So to get oxygenation to any cell, any organ, anything in the body, it has to be following carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide tolerance determines oxygenation handling. So that means getting oxygen to every tissue is carbon dioxide dependent. Even cooler than that is you have those mitochondria, they're spinning, right? That membrane potential, which can go up or down based on if you're hyper or hypopolarizing, so over, under spinning, you can actually go ahead and improve the membrane potential so it can flux nucleotides better. And then the mitochondria can do what? Spin off more ATP and then do what? Structure more water. So I always say like the good old, Jared Pollock, like H3O2, the structured water, hexagonal water. It's really not that what our body's creating. Like even, and I don't know Jared Pollock personally, super brilliant guy. I think what he puts out there is 1/4 of what's really going on. And I think he knows that, but you can only say so much that can't be proven yet. So there's this other 3/4 of the eggshell, the innards of hexagonal water that no one really talks about because we kind of don't know. Because the best we know is basically like ether, which is like energy of the universe. And then you kind of like see the living embodiment of that being plasma, the living embodiment of that basically being water. But it's like, how do, like a lot of this stuff you can't really tease out just yet in the research. You can't bring it up or just kind of get made fun of. So regardless, what this is doing is improving how your body, how your mitochondria are producing the water it spits out because it'll fuse oxygen, hydrogen, right? It's improving that process so your body will get better at structuring its own water.
Yeah. I will say I feel amazing. I actually ran out of CO2 in my little tank, but I was doing it every day. And it's like, you feel amazing doing that. It's kind of funny. And actually that makes sense now because you talk about like breath holding, kind of that endorphin rush people get from holding your breath. I don't recommend holding your breath too long, obviously, but everyone kind of knows that endorphin rush when you like hold your breath and then you like release it. It actually feels very similar to doing the CO2 therapy. When you're done, you kind of have like this endorphin release. You feel really good, but you're relaxed at the same time. So I love that stuff. Leading into, go ahead.
Just to sell the carbon dioxide stuff more. Some people don't care about structuring the water of their body. The body composition changes. Like the whole BFR occlusion work is based on localized carbon dioxide tolerance. So you can literally use it to build more muscle tissue. If you exhale those carbons, it means you're breaking off chains of fat. So if you want to get better at fat loss, improve your carbon dioxide tolerance. You can do the breath holds with like some PBO walks outside to improve how you beta oxidize all those fats. You can go ahead and take it before a training session if you're an athlete to improve oxygenation. So VO2 max goes up, endurance goes up. Like I feel like carbon dioxide inhalable is one of those things where I don't see anyone that couldn't benefit from it. So it's definitely in those categories of put it on the wish list for a rainy day.
Yeah, I love that stuff. Well, actually, that leads me to another question. Talk about your PBO walks, because I'm a big fan of the walks. It's kind of almost like a religious attachment for Taylor and I to walk. One thing that is very ritualistic for us is to always walk after our meals, especially our dinner meal at nighttime. One, that's when we walk our dogs, and our dogs basically demand it now. So
our dogs refuse to go to the bathroom at night unless we walk them. Even though they have like a whole acre of land to go to the bathroom, they will not go to the bathroom at night unless we walk them.
That's cool though.
Yeah. But tell us about your PBO walks. The way I've heard that framed is very, very cool.
Yes. So I apologize to everyone because I make up so many words. I don't do it try and be cool. I just literally, I can't find definitions out there or words that make sense. And so I just make them up. So full honesty, I'm that guy. I'm sorry. PBO, parasympathetic beta oxidation. That's the energy system we're using when we're resting. Right now, like I'm pretty jacked up. So I'm probably not, I'm more in a sympathetic state because I'm excited. But you guys are pretty calm. Like you're more PBO state, right? You're more using fat from intra.
It's all an appearance. We're not right. It's all show.
But I mean, for real though. So like you have these adipocytes and you're pulling out these triglycerides and cholesterols and you're dumping that into the bloodstream to use as energy. So this is like the resting state if you're good. If you're dysfunctional, unhealthy, you're not good in this PBO based world. So the walks really started off with me and Lindsay. So my wife, like we would go outside, we'd take our walks and we just talk about life. And I realized the more we did that, not only one, did you get more in touch as partners, you had a better emotional involvement of the process. You picked up on some cool cosmic energies of being outside, different frequencies and photons associated with that. But the coolest thing about that was at the time, the coolest thing about it, Because I thought all that was cool, but at the time I thought I'm losing a lot of fat. Because this was back in like the bodybuilding days. Like, oh wow, like this is cool. I'm going to keep doing it because I'm losing a bunch of fat. It's because you can get so parasympathetic. Your heart rate should drop on these walks. So maybe you're starting off at like a 80, resting heart rate. You should go down to like a 75, 65, something like that. You should get so relaxed, so calm. You'll get better at that PBO system. And number one, you'll drive more recovery. You'll drive more fat loss. And overall, you'll just feel better. You then can graduate up from there and do more passive, or what I call passive or active manifestation. So this is where you either, if you're taking a walk by yourself, that's more to me the active manifestation. When I do that basically every Monday through Friday, I'll take these walks and I'll go over all the goals. And it always starts off with me, with my family. It's always, okay, goals for the family, for the day, for the week, for the life, for everything, right?
Yeah.
And then it's the goals for the month, the goals for the day. And it's what else I want to do for the world, for business. But I'm actively telling myself what I want to happen and what my goals are. And it's always with positive intentions. It's not like I want to hit X amount of income this month because I need it. It might be something like, I want to hit X amount of income this month because that'd be freaking cool.
Yeah.
Like it's putting a positive spin on everything and not being in that fear, danger response where you think you need something. Because you'll realize like the universe will do what it wants. We kind of have to go along with that. But in reality, we can control what I think is about 95% of reality. But you have to accept polarity. There's that 5% of chaos we can't control. Yeah. And that's whenever you're taking your walk and the bird craps on you and then you slip and you bash up off the ground. That's happened to me. And it's not fun because you're in the zone and then you're like, get sucked out of it. Yeah. But it's like, you get up. Okay, I'm going to finish my walk. It's all good. I'll clean off the poop. I'll brush my elbow or whatever. Take care of my when I get home, right?
Yeah.
That's more of the active manifestation. More of the passive is whenever you guys are outside walking together, walking with the dogs, where in the back of your mind, those subconsciously are always putting that, resonant state. You're putting that out, those vibrations into the universe, but you're more focused about the relationship. We're talking about your days or the dogs or something like that, but passively it's still in the background working for you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the PBO walks and then active passive manifestation.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about heart rate, and this will probably lead into some peptide stuff. So there's a peptide called Retatrutide, and
never heard of it.
Yeah. Seems to be really popular. But there's this phenomenon where Retatrutide will raise your resting heart rate in a lot of cases. Now, the question is there a good range of heart rate to be in? And someone taking Reta, fully going into it knowing, because I have a lot of people that are very fit that I've worked with, maybe their resting heart rate's like a 45. And they take Reta and it goes up to 55 or 60 and they panic. They're like, oh my goodness, my identity, or I had this like badge of honor because of my resting heart rate was 45, to which one I would say might not always be the best thing in a lot of cases. But let's say someone starts Reta, they see their resting heart rate go up. They probably see their HRV go down because everyone worships at the altar of the Oura Ring now because it tracks everything and stuff, which I don't think is a bad thing. I use it myself, but I also think it's data, and let's like use it as a piece, as a component, rather than like the altar to worship at. Do you see there being an issue where someone has that increase in heart rate given the benefits that they're getting from the peptide? Or is it something to like really get concerned with and be worried about? And then maybe it's a signal that the dose is too high, or that's just not going to be a good peptide for them.
So from like a cardiologist standpoint, any good cardiologist would basically say like every beat over 70 at rest is going to take off X percentage of your lifespan, or whatever arbitrary numbers you want to put there, because the numbers don't really matter. Yeah. But it seems to be basically above 70 beats per minute at rest. That's usually when things could be better, right? Your heart's working so hard at that point, and usually it's more of like a sinus rhythm problem, or a lot of people in today's society, it's that neural input, right? Like it's getting that tachycardia response because you opened up Instagram, your best friend posted a squat that you didn't get. Yeah. So you have that sinus. So it's sinus input, that basic rhythm, like your heart will beat without neural input at 100 beats per minute. So if you're pulling it down to 70, neurologically, psychologically, you're in a better parasympathetic state. So technically it's a lot more neural than it is cardiac in nature, but you have to fix the neural to fix the cardiac. So ideally sub 70 when you're resting, but that changes drastically on fitness levels and genders. Obviously, usually guys are bigger than girls. So that's a big consideration there. But even at that, I think most people have a good range. So like what are your resting heart rates, both of you, roughly?
So if I'm not taking Reta, usually like 55 to 60. Okay. And then Reta can bump it up, like it can hover like low or high 60s. So it'll maybe be like 65, to 69 with Reta. And then I would say like on a good night, it probably is closer to like 65. If I've been stressed or whatever, it might be closer to like 68, 69. It's rarely over 70. Taylor's is actually much lower.
Yeah.
Hers is usually, even on Reta, probably like a 55 to 60. Without Reta, probably around 50. But that's kind of the question. Is like, is that cause for concern? Like, am I shortening my life or potentially causing harm from taking it from like 55 to 65, or is that just kind of like, what I kind of think of that too is like, well, if I was in a fat loss phase, which I'm kind of naturally inducing with Reta, is that also going to cause my heart rate? Because if I was like dieting really hard, that'd probably raise my heart rate too, lower my HRV. And so it's like, is it just inducing that to where it's like a little bit more easy for me to do? And the same thing is happening.
And that's why ASCA's the perfect example where the female, a little bit of change, nothing too crazy, but the guy, you see noticeable change. Neither one's to me are either cause for concern. It's only when you go up by like 20 points. If you're like a 50s, now you're hanging out the 80s or 70s, like something's on there, but there is that degree of change once you start actually driving beta oxidation that hard.
Yeah.
So with Reta, it'll bind so hard to that GIP component, little less to GLP and very little to that glucagon stimulation. That GIP component gets potentiated by the glucagon. So it's basically GLP more suppression, turning up the signal, and then drive the metabolic effects. Just enough that glucagon will drive so much extra beta oxidation lipolysis. So lipolysis pulling out of fat cells, breaking off the triglyceride heads and all that fun stuff, dumping in the bloodstream, oxidizing mitochondria. If you're pushing mitochondria that hard, what else does that sound like? If you hyperpolarize with SLU or anything, your heart rate goes up.
Yep.
So anytime you massively overdrive mitochondria and hyperpolarize or drive metabolism up in this way to drive beta oxidation, heart rate goes up.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a reasonable amount. Like anytime most people diet, most guys are going up 10 to 15 points.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. Now, if you're starting off as a guy at like 100 and you're going to like 115, we got problems.
Yeah.
But if you're in the 60s or whatever, you're going up to maybe even the 70s in that context, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And then usually women have less tachycardia. They usually have more bradycardia responses. So heart rate gets too low and then they can't pump out enough oxidation systemically. Then we have the good old menstrual cycle, which definitely helps things, right? Because then blood volume's low. So you have less distribution, less volume, and all of a sudden women are passing out. They're getting lightheaded because they're taking Retatrutide while they're going through a pretty heavy menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to talk about. A lot of women don't, or a lot of people don't talk about with women taking Retatrutide and going through their menstrual cycle. It can have the opposite effect. If you're more anemic, it'll cause you to have more bradycardia. So your 45 beats per minute will go down to like 35. And then you start to have problems. Blood pressure drops, hypotensive, and then you kind of pass out.
Yeah.
I think that's actually, I'm not going to say more dangerous, but I've talked to a lot of people that are almost like, I've heard it categorized as super fit, super sick. And so you have people that chronically diet for long periods of time, males and females, but like I think it's more dangerous to a female that's menstruating, probably because they're going to have more neuroendocrine shutdown. And you see this like heart rates of like 35 beats per minute. It's almost, do you think something is like actually so like it's become so much that like their nervous system's actually like too low to the point to like they're actually going to start to have like a hormonal shutdown that can affect their menstrual cycle and have like a negative cascade in that sense?
Back to polarity, right? Too high or too low is just as bad. And I do see a lot of women more favoring that side of things. And then you also have the problem of if that cardiac tissue, like everything else, is not stressed and there's no demand imposed upon it, there's never adaptation. So then guys have the heart attacks, but then females are the ones that have the weaker hearts. And then they have to exert themselves and then something pops, something breaks, something goes. Usually like a septum problem, Purkinje fiber, like there's a weird dysfunction, whereas guys like, oh, LVH. Or like something pretty specific.
Yeah.
For women, it's usually the odd things that happen because they get such an almost an atrophied heart that then it can't pop out effectively. And then you have to go save the kid from whatever the car and it doesn't explode, but something goes wrong, usually from like a valve aspect as well. So
what do you see with a lot of women in GLPs that they seem to struggle with?
Definitely the heart rate.
Yeah. From being too high?
From it being too high. I think a lot of women, I'm not like a big tracker. Like I haven't worn my Oura Ring in a while because it stopped working. I need to get a new one.
Well, good.
Like,
you didn't get any Bluetooth or EMF while you were sleeping. So there you go.
I know. I think a lot of women get very fixated on the numbers. And I think when they start using Reta, they see that heart rate, that goes up and they start getting so freaked out about the numbers. But then they're not also taking consideration like the mental stress that they're already under. Now we add in something like Reta that's also going to speed up the metabolism. Like there was already a kind of a foundational problem to begin with.
Exactly. And then so till you're on top of this, because we're talking about GLPs, not that it's gender specific, but I do see more women have more of an emotional attachment, which societal wise makes sense, right? We're seeing atrophying of brains kind of happening clear across the spectrum, especially in females, because as we look at the prefrontal cortex, like different singlets and parts of the brain that are involved in like willpower, resistance to temptation, those all get blunted and downregulated on GLPs, which is fine.
Yeah.
Because usually you could say at a super low microdose where that doesn't affect you. So like the 10 micrograms a week or 100 micrograms a week, things like low dose just for inflammation, you know?
Yeah.
And then you work it up for fat loss or whatever you're doing. As the dose goes up over time, or as frequency goes up over time, and you never take time off or rotate off, you're seeing those brains, those cortical regions atrophying. You can overcome that with some basic neuroplastic work, nootropics, things like that. But we're seeing that over abuse of GLPs causing people to no longer have like drive to overeat or binge, right? They don't have drive for anything. They start losing their willpower for everything. It's like, I gotta pick up the kids from school. I could wait 30 minutes. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, you know, I don't want to work out today. I'm just tired. Like all of those things usually are the initial signs of atrophy of the brain. And that sounds scarier than it really is. It's not that hard to avoid, but it's something that does keep coming up. And then you also have the weird thing now with GLPs, especially Retatrutide, where as you work the dose up, there's a phenomenon that can either cause receptor decay or a receptor upregulation. And the problem is both of them usually require more of a dose or mathematically and geometrically a different molecule, different ligand to bind. So that could mean just switching out Retatrutide to Taurus to Sema because they're molecularly shaped differently. So they'll dock in and bind the receptor differently. Or you could fix it off with going the Calo-Curb route or the Hey-Aussie or things like that, be more natural. So easy to fix, but they're problems that most people aren't really looking at.
Do you think, so it's almost like with the GLPs, it's making it too easy for people to not have the addictive binge overeating behavior, but it would be like if, I guess, you were taking a pill or a shot that made your body look like it was exercising, but you weren't exercising. And then you're no longer exercising. You're like, I don't really need to do that anymore. And then you're not actually harnessing the muscle. Like you're not working that muscle that's actually the willpower muscle in your brain, which is structurally there. It's emotionally and mentally and, you know, spiritually there, but then it's also structurally there too. So by not engaging those, because we're like synthetically blunting it, do you think, will we hit like a GLP apocalypse in like 10 or 15 years to where like all these people are going to have like anhedonia or like lack of drive or willpower because they've been on GLPs for so long?
Yeah. Like that's why I'm kind of trying to start talking about it now. Cause like I could see that happening. And again, the problem with saying that is it's so easy to avoid. It's like you said with the exercise mimetics, you know, just because you have an exercise mimetic pill doesn't mean you stop training. So there's the mechanical nature, different things happen. pH, cellular, like all the mechanoreceptors, everything changes from weight training or cardiovascular work compared to just taking a pill for it. So it's never either or for me, it's both. So I think with the GLPs, they're amazing drugs. So take them, but just know they're not forever. Or if they are going to be a forever for you, then understand that the dose will have to come down eventually, or you'll have to rotate out or something in that whole line. Because you can take these things long-term at, like a lot of people now for like Reta will do like 200 micrograms every other week. You know, one shot, just 2 times a month. That's just to pull down background inflammation, to pull down LDL oxidation, just like basic health levels. And that's an easy way to implement it because we don't care about half-lives here. We're looking at non-genomic and genomic actions. So we're looking at the long-term genetic changes they make. And to me, that makes sense. Now, if you're dieting, trying to lose active fat, it's not really going to work. That's kind of because you got to work it up. But to me, it should be cyclical in nature in some way.
I think that brings up the question of what is a microdose. So microdose is like, I think it's going to be different for everyone. But for me, I kind of think of blast and cruise. If you need to go through a fat loss phase, you can take up the dose to whatever that is to achieve your goal weight and then cruise back down to that super low dose. Like you said, maybe even just once or twice a month. But with a microdose, people say, well, what is a microdose? Is it 100 micrograms or is it 2 milligrams? To me, I think it's the dose that someone doesn't have those effects of the appetite suppression and those things. How much can I take basically to get something to get the health benefits, but also that I don't feel per se?
Gotcha. Yeah. So completely agreed. Going back, like we talked beforehand before we recorded, like how I always have at least 100 people. So you could say at least 100 people respond to this way or 99, whatever.
Yeah.
At this point with Reta and GLPs, it's way past that. Like everyone's worked with so many people on GLPs, whatever, that number's in the thousands, whatever, right?
Yeah.
If we look at those generally, if we're looking at like a Retatrutide, if we're trying to use that more for like longevity, just anti-inflammation and pulling down the oxidation of LDL particles, you could get away with probably about 100 micrograms total for the week.
Yeah.
Like it could be as low as 10 micrograms a couple times per week, but you could as low as a weight with about 100 micrograms total. So to me, it's a microdose for that goal.
Yeah.
Then you sidestep to the right. You go, okay, if that's for inflammation, LDL benefits, what about using semaglutide as a low dose to be like a long-term modulator on the cocaine and amphetamine receptor to make sure you don't keep binge drinking or you don't keep your cocaine addiction or whatever. That microdose would probably be like 500 micrograms per week.
Yeah.
It would have to be some from semaglutide because tirzepatide and retatrutide do not cause that same effect from like an abuse withdrawal standpoint.
Yeah.
So then you go to the fat loss effects. A microdose of that could be super variable. That could be like 500 micrograms to a milligram.
Yeah.
Because now like the common doses in the studies are like what, 5 grams, 10 grams are super high.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like microdoses within each category. And then also obviously the personal response.
Yeah. Talking about like higher doses, I read a paper a while back. There was actually more fat loss at 8 milligrams weekly of Retatrutide than 12 milligrams weekly of Retatrutide, which begs the question. We were actually kind of talking about this a little bit earlier. I think sometimes with these, so like everyone that's watching this has probably done something like this. They do Reta, Masi, SLU, AOD, like they do the, they do the things, right? They get on all the stuff and it works. It's hard to deny that it works, especially if you put in the effort, exercise and, try to eat right with it. However, I almost wonder, so like if we take that data point that like 8 milligrams and 12 milligrams a week were basically identical for fat loss, that's 50% higher of dose. Like percentage wise, that's pretty big. Do you think there is something that's like overturning the nervous system or creating cortisol, like stressing people out, that's actually inhibiting fat loss beyond a certain point? And then we could take that to like our world where people are doing all these things like mitochondria and everything else, that there is a threshold point to which you're going to push yourself to have negative effects after that point.
Yes. So I call it the Cortisol-Hepcidin-Biome Triangle. Another thing I made up.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Love that.
Right. I mean, so you have the initial stressor to the cells, which will then trigger that hepcidin release, which will cause you to start liberating. Generally, a lot of intramuscular nitrogen and things we don't want to liberate. That's like the sympathetic stressed out state. That's why the GLPs or whatever will slowly jack up the heart rate on top of the mitochondrial overspinning and everything like that. As that's all happening, what are these GLPs doing? Generally slowing down gut motility in some way. Now, just the slowing down of gut motility isn't going to be inherently bad, but for a lot of people, the fermentation picks up. And then I've been seeing on a lot of like Vitatrax and gut zoomers and things like that, where like longum populations and populations more ancestralized that we want are slowly getting killed off. And so again, that's what I see from like GLP abuse, right? Whereas if it's more at a moderate range for you, whether that's 1, 3, 5, 8, whatever milligrams, we don't see that same change. So to me, there almost has to be that more, incoherent effect at the bacterial level. So these healthy, beneficial bacteria are actually killing themselves off, or being attacked by the forward invader of like a SIBO or like whatever your own body is proliferating internally. So it's that stress response, the hepcidin response, and usually that biome response too. So I've been trying to get more people on GLPs, like, get Vitatrax done, get a gut zoomer done, like any gut biome test just to see what's going on internally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one thing people leave out is if you slow gastric emptying with a GLP and you have SIBO or you have Candida or something, that is probably not going to go well at some level. In one way, I'm like, it probably helps because it's like modulating inflammation. But then another level, you do that.
Generating inflammation.
Yeah, because you get this like right at your sternum esophagus of just this burning feeling, probably from like SIBO or Candida or something that is being exacerbated by the GLP. And it's like, well, upping the dose is only going to make that worse, not better.
And so everyone understands too, we all love GLPs. Like
I say this because this is like
just guidelines.
Yes, exactly. Like like guide rails, like in a bowling alley when you have like the rails, like let's keep it in the lane. Yeah, like keep it in the lane.
So we've been bowling as a family. In 33 years, I've never used bumpers.
Yeah.
Until recently, Lindsay's like, you have to learn this skill. You got to be able to bowl. And I'm glad she did because now it's fun to learn. But I was like, at first I was like, Jesus, I got so many gutter balls every time because I didn't take the time to learn. But that's also this conversation. You don't take the time to learn how to use these things properly for you, what that matters for you. And then you spend so many time just getting gutter balls instead of doing it early on in your career, life, whatever. Then you could figure out, okay, going back to the initial point I made where it's not about the dose. It's about the pattern, the frequency, and what really is more coherent for you, right? Your best dose of Reta could be 5 milligrams. It could be 1 milligram. It could be 100 micrograms. I think you need to look at your goal, listen to these guidelines, and then go with that and find that dose for you. So to me, that's where the whole mapping concept comes in. Whether it's with training or nutrition or peptides or supplements, you have to see what works for you. And that's why, like, although polarity exists, you can't exist in the black and the white. Like, I'm very much gray because I love everything we're talking about today. I can't take GLPs anymore, but I love them. I wish I could, but you know, I've done a lot of work and I think GLP receptor sensitivity for me is so high that I just don't need them anymore. But I still want to take them because I know the benefits and I'm helping everyone else with this, that, and the other, but I know better. I've done that mapping work. I know I just can't take them. So.
I mean, I think there's a lot of FOMO around that too. You see it with like Reta versus Tirzepatide is like, oh, I've got to be on Reta. Some people I think do much better on Tirzepatide than they do Retatrutide.
Yes.
I think I could achieve any fat loss goal that pretty much anybody would need with Tirzepatide alone. If you have someone doing the right things. Otherwise, obviously Reta is probably going to get you there faster and maybe more efficiently, but I still think there's more comfortably too. And I still think there's a case though that like a lot of people do much better on Tirzepatide than they would Retatrutide.
I think Reta has the most amount of negative side effects for most people. But it also usually has the most positive as well. So I think of all of them, I think the one to be the most careful with is probably the Reta. And then we have the new UBT compound coming out where that's supposed to either stimulate all GIP, GLP, and glucagon components equally, 33, 33, 33, or it's going to be more glucagon heavy. Again, we don't know for sure. The kinetic research is not out. I know someone over there and can't say specifics, obviously, but it's like, it's going to be one of these two things. And so I think that's going to be exciting because if Reta is barely touching on glucagon and that's like really like the metabolic beta oxidative player, what if it is like a 80% glucagon player?
And like, what if we only need like a little bit of GLP and GIP?
Right? Exactly.
Does that change like the receptor conversation of like some of those negative things we talk about of like overloading GLP receptors and like sensitivity issues and everything? What if we just get like a little bit of that, and then we have more glucagon that is creating fat losses, raising metabolism.
Right. That's why it would be cool to see. I do think the whole GLP conversation, I don't want to say it's tapped out, but it seems like it's always like the most important thing everyone cares about. And although it's one of the best players out there, I do think people need to start looking more at some other things that are coming out. I guess that goes into the next part if you don't mind. Let's do it. No, that's what everyone's here for. So all the new molecules, like there's so many new ones coming out.
What's your first favorite right now that like at home at night when you go to bed, you can't go to sleep because you're so excited about it?
KLP-1.
Okay.
So Clotho Protein Peptide 1.
Not GLP-1. KLP.
Yes, not GLP-1. Also not recombinant Clotho.
Okay.
So this is the peptide version. This has, honestly, I don't think it's ever been really utilized to the masses publicly before this. I've had a couple chemists over there who would make it, but then it would only last, like that relationship would only last so long. Someone would get shut down or something would happen. Recently was able to have a chemist that could do this for us in my group. And we have a lot of data on KLP-1 now from previously and as of recent. And it's cool because, again, not recombinant Clotho, love recombinant Clotho. This is just a different conversation. KLP-1's the peptide version. So it's getting more of that endogenous release of Clotho Protein Peptide 1, or rather of endogenous Clotho. So KLP-1 is essentially causing the release. Now, if you look at Clotho, it's a hard conversation because if you track it, right? So conformational, so alpha, beta, gamma subunits, conformational binding with FGF23, spin-off, shoot-off effects with FGF21, protein kinase B, protein kinase C, a couple different of like the neuroplastic-based components, like the gammas. You go down the list and there's not a negative or there's not a positive biological cascade. It does not drive or touch in some way. So if you look at the positive effects of autophagy, there's Clotho. If you look at the positive effects of senescent cell clearance, there's Clotho. If you look at tissue regeneration at the articular cartilage level, there's Clotho. Look at the myofibrillar regeneration, so muscular tissue, there's Clotho. Neurological tissue, Clotho, like everything's there. So that's why Clotho got such a big name, and that's why they're doing all the genetic research and to see if that works. I personally don't have enough experience with that yet. I don't have the 100 people to say, hey, it's worked 99 times out of 100. So I don't like to comment on things I don't know. But with KLP-1, we have multiple hundreds of people that have used it to this point. And to me, it's lived up to the hype because it's the only thing I've seen out there to basically do everything. So if you can imagine how like the Wolverine stack got so big because it heals everything.
Yeah.
KLP-1 does that probably to the 10th degree.
Wow.
So what people normally see is that HRV goes up, heart rate tends to go down. Indirectly, because of that, if you're more parasympathetic and less stressed, libido tends to go up. That generally causes more orgasmic potential. So everything about like biology being healthier and cells being more coherent improves.
Yeah.
So the byproduct of that is more anabolism, more fat loss, pretty much anything positive. You can think better VO2 max, better skin quality, better hair quality. Like I hate to say it's the one thing that does it all, but like it kind of really does.
Yeah.
And it honestly has been a really big player with like the professional leagues I work with because it's not banned. It's not tested for. It's completely legal. So we're not breaking any rules. And yet it's giving athletes the recovery they need that's in a legal fashion that still allows them to not be destroyed and crippled by the time they're 40 and 50.
Yeah.
So there's a broad base of people.
Can you explain to the simple person what would be the difference between recombinant Clotho and then Clotho? Is it Clotho Protein 1 or Clotho Peptide?
Clotho Protein Peptide.
Clotho Protein Peptide.
There's so many.
1.
There's Clotho. There's so much different types of Clotho now on the market. Like, how do we know which is the better option to choose?
I don't think it's a matter of better.
Yeah.
It's a matter of different. So like why I liked KLP-1, we'll keep it that because it's shorter, right?
Yeah.
I like KLP-1 because you almost can't get a negative side effect because it can only drive that endogenous production.
So this would be like a peptide version of Clotho?
Hence the name.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. So you have that where it almost puts the safety brakes on for you. Now, granted, I'm sure you could take enough of anything and have problems. Like we know that with everything. But it's so hard to find a problem there. With recombinant Clotho, you can easily take too much or take it too frequently, and then that will cause like vascular calcification and things like that. Again, I love recombinant Clotho. I love the peptide version of Clotho. I think they both have their place and purpose. I think for the masses, it seems like the peptide version is just easier to work with.
Yeah.
Because you can't really run into negative side effects. And it's still a pretty low dose molecule. I started off trying, because with all this stuff, like as I'm figuring it out, I got to figure out the doses for everyone.
Yeah.
And so it's like, where do you start? So for me, it's always low. And so try and guess what you think the chemical signaling potential is going to be, and then what the consequences could be if you overshoot that. So I was like, okay, we're starting this off at 1 microgram per kilogram of body weight, and we work up. And over the years, we would work up to anywhere between 1 to 10 micrograms per kilogram of body weight. That tended to be a pretty good range. Then had this new chemist come along, and the product was definitely either more pure, or it was, when you make these, there's a recipe, there's a synthetic process, like there's an art that goes into making these things that people don't understand when they're new molecules that no one really knows about.
Yeah.
And so this new provider did it better. And so we were seeing more like 100 micrograms being a pretty good range. Now you could dose it higher, but it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So because of that, to me, like the minimum effective dosage is about 100 micrograms. You get away with less. But that's a sweet spot for most people. And then it makes a vial, 10 milligram vial, last about 100 days.
Yeah.
Which works out good.
Yeah.
You could work it up in boluses. I'm slowly figuring that out with this new variety.
Yeah.
But that's the rough range with Clotho Protein Peptide 1.
Okay.
What about topical Clotho? Because I'm noticing that popping up a lot more now.
Sounds like a skincare scam.
Yeah, it's a lot of skin. I'm seeing a lot of skincare lines with Clotho in it now.
So I have yet to find a good one, but I would like to believe that soon there will be one.
Yeah.
Because the chemistry on it's not that crazy. If we have these topical exomes and stem cells that work pretty well, then Clotho shouldn't be too far behind.
Yeah.
So I don't personally know of a good brand yet, but now I'm gonna have to find a good one. Because that is like, you look at again, what it heals, it does a little bit of everything. So it seems like that would be the next iteration.
Do you think, have you seen the potential for, let's say, KLP-1 to potentially, let's say you have a 26-year-old guy, low testosterone, because what 26-year-old guy has high testosterone now? Not a lot. No. Would that, because you were mentioning the athlete conversation, would that be the best? Do you think thus far that would be the closest thing to starting hormone replacement therapy for someone like that? That's like, hey, maybe I don't want to go on hormones, but because Clotho touches everything, do you think that could be like the next best thing that would maybe get them closer to anything else that would be like HRT?
So we are seeing so far it being a reallocator. Trying to pick the terminology properly.
Yeah.
Literally at the airport, I was waiting for you guys to pick me up. I got a text from my girl in Australia who's big on Clotho Protein Peptide, one big member of my group.
Yeah.
And she got her blood
Is that
work back.
Fiona?
Yeah.
Shout out Fiona.
Yeah.
Everyone go follow Fiona Chen. She's really smart.
She's awesome. She's such a cool girl.
Yeah.
She got her blood work back and testosterone was sky high. And we've done all the comparisons and everything. And I know she keeps her due diligent notes. And it was mainly the Clotho that did that.
Wow.
And I look back at the notes from myself, clients. And again, I say it's a reallocator because I've seen it pull SHBGs like the 150s down to the 40 to 60 range.
Wow.
I've seen it pull estradiol and progesterones in females, crazy high levels back down into range. Or if they have no estrogen and progesterone, push it up. Maybe not all the way, but enough.
Yeah.
So it seems to be reallocating fuel sources to fuel what is out of range and to fix it.
Yeah.
I have no idea exactly how it is that intelligent to do that because it's kind of interesting, right? How can it, and it makes sense if it's a more resonant and coherent molecule, but how can it be that intelligent to go ahead and know what to do where? And again, it sounds kind of common sense whenever you say it out loud because like, oh, all these supplements know what to do. They only do X, Y, and Z. But to me, it kind of goes that next step further to where I'm starting to think more about like, okay, what if this is actually modulating things at like a magnetic level?
Yeah.
What if it's causing the more receptivity of the changing of electrodynamic equations to improve the field that our cells are creating? And that's what can heal all the cells.
Yeah.
Again, no idea, but that's kind of where my mind goes. Like, how can it can't just do this. So how's it healing everything when no one else has yet?
Well, if you think about this, think of bioregulators or thymosin alpha-1. What does thymosin alpha-1 do? If your immune system is suppressed, it's going to help boost it up. If it's like you're autoimmune, you're over, like way over, in a lot of cases, thymosin alpha-1 will help you bring it down. I think if you look at some of these, like we have some peptides that are signaling molecules, like it's like a jackhammer or a sledgehammer, like bam, it's going to hit you. Like a GLP is like a sledgehammer. You can boom, 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 take up the dose and it's going to have like these increasing effects, but maybe it's more on the side of like a modulator that it's like you were saying, like SHBG too high, bring it down, or like estradiol too low, bring it up, or too high, bring it down. Maybe it's touching the body in a way that it's so intelligent that it's actually like having, like, if you look at a system of like, this is too high, this is too low, this is too high, this is too low, and it's going in and like smoothing that curve across all the organ systems in the body. Maybe it's like, is that the next thing that can actually do that in a way that is next to being the Holy Grail,
It's okay. So perfect transition after you say that is the next molecule, VD11, which had some negatives. And that's kind of why I want to bring it up now. It plays off what you were saying.
Yeah.
Because with all these are new molecules that really no one has tried.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure these things out for ourselves. So backstory this, and then it'll kind of connect to your story, how you're saying. Doing some work with some zoo vets and some work with like gorillas, lions, and bears and things like that. Started helping out one guy with his like reptilian exhibit and amphibians, things like that.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to learn more because I knew nothing about amphibians. So I started learning more about frogs, and I really stumbled upon some stuff with salamanders and the osmacry frogs. And started looking at the regeneration of salamanders' spinal cords, mainly coming from VD11. And you started looking at how these different amphibians can mainly regenerate things.
Because can't they regrow a limb, right?
Yeah.
Like if a salamander gets his like arm cut off or whatever.
Exactly. And there's
a
a cluster of a couple things, but like, I don't know why, but my gut, I kept being drawn back to VD11. I'm like, why is this standing out to me? It was like, as I'm reading this, in my mind, it wasn't actually, in my mind, it was bold. It was jumping out at me. It's like, this is the one, Alex, look into me.
Yeah.
So looked into it, looked at the amino acid sequence, looked pretty simple to actually do, reached out to that same chemist. He was able to do that, put everything together, pretty simple molecules, nothing crazy. They did the LD50 studies to make sure, obviously, there's no lethal dose for humans because, safety is number one.
Yeah.
And we started implementing it. I don't know if he took it before me or if I was the first person to take it, but I'm just very proud to say that because I think it has the potential not to be a Clotho Protein Peptide 1, but to be close. So with VD11, I kind of talk about it as being like the Cerebrolysin BPC TB combination. So not quite like the Clotho, but still pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you look at VD11, through this TRK based receptors, you're going to see different kinds of interactions with microglia and with astrocytes. So what this means is usually like your brain's immune system, your brain's communication systems, all the neuroplastic events will go up. You start looking like the, NL gamma with neuroplasticity. You look at everything in the brain with BDNF, GDNF, even NGF, it's getting upregulated. So it's kind of like a faux cerebrolysin, side step to the right, and you start seeing the fibroblast accumulation. You start seeing all the changes to the immune system. You see the changes to keratinocytes. So you see if that, another triangle I like to create.
Yeah.
If you got 3 points, by the way, you can connect the dots. And if there's 3, it makes sense, right? If there's just 2, it's not connecting the dots.
Triangle 360-degree angles. There you go.
Seriously, we'll get into geometry later on with everything up there. But seriously, so if you cross-stimulate keratinocytes and fibroblasts, you indirectly have to stimulate the immune system in a positive way.
Yeah.
So if anyone knows what those words mean, you're stimulating collagen, muscular repair and regrowth, the immune system repair and regrowth. Like, it's almost stimulating everything similar but different to how BPC, TB, and how cerebrolysin would work. So I thought, on paper, cool. LD50 studies, cool. Let's go ahead and try it out. So started off super low, slowly worked up. And initially, I started seeing some heightened senses as I got the higher doses, where initially just saw healing. Like, just saw pretty good recovery. Not as good as KLP-1, but like noticeable changes.
Yeah.
Less of a need for like, didn't need as much alpha GPC or ketone bodies or oxygenation or things like that to get more neurochemical action. So I thought, cool, things are standing out. But then the senses thing was weird. So I was in my kitchen and my family was in the other room, in the family room, and I smell pee. And I'm looking around, I felt like I stepped in like dog pee. And I look over and Aiden, my middle son, he's like making his face. He's like peeing in his diaper. And I'm like, dude, are you peeing? He's like, yep. And I thought, at the time, I didn't think anything. I was like, that's strange, you know? But then I went to go on my morning walk and living in Pennsylvania, freezing cold. And like, I couldn't leave the house. I was bundled up, but I'd go outside. I would be like pulled back in. Like, it was so cold. I like couldn't stand it, couldn't tolerate it. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just a cold day. Then my sauna, which I honestly love my sauna at 130. Like, I like it right there. I chill at 130. I'm good there.
Is it infrared or dry heat?
Infrared.
Okay. Yeah. Which is like higher end for an infrared.
Yeah,
That's like on the higher. Yeah. Okay.
And, but I couldn't tolerate 130. And I do that. I've done that every single day for months now.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this has to be something with that. Oh, what was the only change I made? The VD11. And so and this happened with a couple people where not like those specific things, but senses were heightened, but sometimes for the worse. Because it'd be cool to have super smelling, right?
Yeah.
Right, that'd be cool-ish. But then,
well, not for Taylor though, because she smells me enough, and that would be like a death sentence. But
right, so it's like you're trying to see, like, okay, a little bit's cool, but as you work up, it's starting to get creepy.
Yeah,
and that's where I started. I was hoping, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but I'm trying to find that one molecule that'll modulate cryptochrome in the eye, so we could see magnetic fields of people around us, of television screens and things like that. I thought, like, oh, this is heightening senses. Maybe it'll modulate cryptochrome. Again, probably not. But with the VD11, to me, that was where we tried something new. It works for sure. It's an amazing, actually, it's a good player on gut repair. That is one of the players, that single cell lining in the gut. A lot of people that have perforations, ulcerative colitis, things like that, they're seeing mass repair. Wow. And there's people in the group that are utilizing it, and mainly in their like gut dysfunctional populations. Yeah. And they're seeing some crazy cool things. Yeah. So that's amazing.
Well, I have a couple questions with that. One, we were actually talking earlier. So people would think it would be insane for someone to be able to see magnetic fields with their eyes, right? The way I think of that is the 5 senses are like the human interpretation of what reality is known to be. You can heighten those. Could you heighten eyesight to the point that it actually is picking up that data? Because there is a magnetic field around all of us right now. I just can't see it because my ocular capacity is not of that such. Is that something that you could actually, like, if you were to turn up the vision enough that you would actually see that? Is it like improving eyesight that much, or is it actually like interacting with the field around us in a way that it would like be able to like help us? Because think of for everyone listening, I want you to think of this, like the sauna did not feel like the sauna. The 130 was the 130, but you changed the physical vessel that was picking up the information. Yeah. So is it enhancing eyesight that much, or is it actually like in switching your interpretation of what reality that's already there to begin with, just like the sauna was at 130 to begin with? Is it doing that in a way that's like heightening your physical senses so that you actually pick up more of what's in the field already?
So because VD11 is like partly neurochemical, I don't see that as being more eyesight. I see that as being more like right hemisphere magnetic in nature.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you look at our perception of reality, everyone has the same innate capacity to, I think, essentially be limitless, do anything. Like we have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
You look at, again, what was crazy 500 years ago, people looking at birds in the sky.
Yeah.
And it's like, guess what? We're flying now.
Yeah.
Or like all these crazy things that you would have said we were crazy beforehand.
Yeah.
So to me, this kind of goes back to Persinger's work. With the work he did with the God helmet and everything, where you're modulating that right hemisphere, where you can modulate the magnetism. And that was more like 7 hertz frequency, same as the earth, same as the hippocampus, all these things.
Yeah.
You're using it for other purposes. But I think once we can modulate that maybe with a peptide, like something like a VD11, where maybe it's modulating the magnetic field because of the hypertropic effects it's causing. So like I've done the whole octopus God helmet type stuff with cerebrolysin, trying specifically to hypertrophy that right portion of my brain. And it works pretty dang well.
Yeah.
Saying that, not everyone's ready for that. So don't go out there and, best thing till you know what you're doing. But as you can change the magnetism around that right hemisphere, as you can hypertrophy the pineal gland, then as you can connect mainly through the feet to the earth, to me, that's where you can reach these next levels of senses, if you want to call them that, because there's people out there that can do this.
Yeah.
It's very few and far between. It's certain people, especially I always see people when I use the example of the autistic community. A lot of them see things differently and they'll give that sad person a hug, but they never knew they were sad.
Yeah.
Dude, have you heard of the telepathy tapes? Have you heard of that podcast? I listened to a few episodes of that. It's crazy.
Wild.
Well, this crazy because they're literally non-locally communicating. And then also they are telling other people's thoughts. Like they will have them in a different room of their house. Like for anyone that hasn't heard of this, basically you have an autistic child. There are documented cases of this. One can be in a basement and their mom would be on the 3rd floor in a house. They can tell you what their mom is thinking on the 3rd floor of the house, like that. So that's obviously real. Like we can document that now.
Yeah.
Maybe it is something to do with the magnetism in the brain that is creating that, and with a peptide that we could actually modulate that. That's pretty cool. Like that's pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's to me, like so far, at least what I've seen historically, is you'll have camps, right, of the like electromagnetic world or the peptide world, or you'll have all these different camps. Yeah. And so like it's always made sense to me, like, let's just do it all together.
Yeah.
Like, be smart about it, but why not combine these things?
Yeah.
And that's where like I see a lot of these things really going.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of stuff that you guys do, a lot of stuff that I do with my clients and everything I do for myself. And I don't think I was born with any special gifts. It's just what I've done to access those more than other people haven't.
Yeah.
And like all this stuff to me is very accessible for a lot of people, but it's a slow process.
Yeah.
So as everyone's listening to this, like don't automatically go out there and buy a God helmet and take Cerebrolysin and do all this stuff. I told you the story. I singed a lot of my hair off 2 weeks ago. Like you could do things wrong and but
that's the beauty. You don't have to do that. Just listen to people that do and actually are like responsible in a way that they like understand how to push thresholds, and then like go back to the public. And like Alex and I were talking about this earlier, like that's what we feel like our purpose is, to be able to do and like bring back some of this information that, like we were talking about this earlier, like building the churches thousands of years ago. Maybe that was something, this like ability to see like magnetic fields, maybe that was something that was a lot more common 1,000 years ago than it is today, because a baby comes out into the world with like fluoride being dumped into its water and like 5G towers around it. You're probably not going to be able to see magnetic fields with that much inflammation coming from things around you. But maybe 1,000 years ago, Taylor and I were talking about like going to churches in Europe, like how awestruck you are by the architecture and the geometry and everything. Like maybe this is just getting back to what it really means to be a human.
Yeah.
And I agree.
Yeah.
And that's the geometry, the architecture, the 60-degree angles, nothing's that 90-degree angle where energy just hits and dissipates. It hits and it folds over into itself.
Yeah.
And you feel that. Like I told you guys beforehand, like our house, Lindsay designed it. We didn't design it purposefully that way. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, like that just worked out magically, right?
Yeah.
But like you can feel the energetic shift in those environments. And that goes back to, you mentioned about, the FLFE measuring your level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Like part of that is because of how the house is structured, the land it's built on, how, what kind of non-coherent EMF mitigation systems you have in place. All that stuff matters, and I think you mentioned about, having the baby there too. So is it the transition to fertility, babies? We're going to go down that conversation.
Let's do it. First thing though, before that, because you brought up something, I just want to, it brought my attention to something. I have seen a resurgence massively, and this could be for a couple things. I've seen a resurgence massively in people fiending to get cerebrolysin.
Yes.
Can you and I want your opinion on this. I'm like biased towards a certain way.
Yeah.
I think people overdo it with Cerebrolysin, meaning that they reach for that before it's really necessary, that there's other molecules along the way to help with brain fog or whatever. I've used Cerebrolysin. And again, if you differ from this, completely fine. I just am curious because I've seen a lot of people, like, I think it's harder to get now too than it probably was at one point. So like fiending for Cerebrolysin. I think a lot of the people though are in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. They are getting a little bit of brain fog.
Even younger. I see it even younger in the 30s.
Yeah. 30s too. Yeah, for sure. They're getting a little bit of brain fog, probably because they're too much EMF, too much inflammation. But anyway, they're getting some brain fog. They see their parents. My grandmother a few years ago passed away. One of my grandmothers passed away from dementia. They are in that age group where they see their parent potentially having some cognitive decline. And they're like, oh man, I don't want to go. I've got 20 years and I don't want to be that because I see my parent going down that road. Maybe it's a little too late for that. I see Cerebrolysin as much more as like that sledgehammer intervention. That's like probably, it's not bad. I love Cerebrolysin. I think it's good. Yeah. But I think there's so many steps along the way before someone really needs to run that. And maybe that's me saying like, maybe it's just one cycle a year. You run it, you're done with it, whatever that is for someone. But what are your thoughts around that? Because I think people reach for that before they really need to. And I say that like I love Cerebrolysin, but I think it's one of those things. I'm just seeing more and more people, they have brain fog in their immediate thing. It's kind of like if you need to lose fat.
They want like a peptide version of like Adderall.
Yes,
so they can be like
that's
a
what
super, like a super worker and just like work even more and their brains can go even more.
Yeah. So what would be like the alternative to that? Or maybe it is Cerebrolysin. So what are your thoughts?
So I disagree, but I also agree.
Okay.
I don't think that that's like, oh, I have a little bit of brain fog, Cerebrolysin, right?
Yeah.
But I do think people can layer it in early with benefits.
Okay.
I think the dose is where most people get wrong.
Okay.
If you have the Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, TBI, like real severe problems, that's the drip usually of 30, 40, 50, 60 ml. Like that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you're using it as like a recovery tool from a hard work day, the day after, the night of, depending on if you do or do not get stimulated, 1 to 5 milliliters tends to work pretty good.
Yeah.
You can also have like a podcast day, or we could do a seminar or something like that in person where you can take a bigger bolus of like 10 milliliters that morning. But I think it's so versatile to me. Why I disagree personally is because like I think you can do it every way. Like I've microdosed like 10 IUs before, which no one really does. I'm more sensitive neurochemical, so most people can't do that. Usually like the lowest is like a milliliter if people get a real response. Yeah. But you can clear glutamate pretty cool with that. So to me, it's more another tool you can use. But I do agree with you in the sense that like it shouldn't be the first thing you reach for. To me, this is after the tiger's milk, the DHEA, the micronized pregnenolone, 10 milligrams, like after those baselines are covered, that's I do. Like if you're going to put it in a lineup, it is level 2. Whereas level 1 is like the basic, actually, no, I should change that up. Level 1 should really be the neuroplastic work, playing the Elevate app, doing cursive writing, being bilingual, doing Sudoku. Like
just reading a book once or twice.
Yeah, read a book. Yeah, right? Like that's level 1.
Yeah.
Then it's the over-the-counter nootropics and all the mushrooms. And then the next level is everything like this. But I do classify them basically in the same.
Yeah. I wanted to try this because I have some. There's, so you have the ampoules of Cerebrolysin, which is like 10 mLs is like 2,160 milligrams. So like 1 ml would be 2. Yeah, that's actually a great way too. There's the lyophilized form, which is like 60 milligram bottles. I think people, before they need to go to like the higher ones, probably could try the lyophilized bottles and take like 15 or 20 milligrams, which would be closer to like that 10 IUs. That'd be like 20 milligrams of the 10 IUs. Try that first. Would you recommend it taking it at night for recovery? Like if you've had a cognitive demanding day, take it at night, or take it at night before the cognitive demanding day or the morning of the cognitive demanding day?
So always trial it out first thing in the morning and see if you get stimulated from it. Okay. Certain people, they just get chilled out and vibed out. They get very parasympathetic. That's the person who used it at night to recover. The other person who had a hard work day, they get stimulated from it, use it the next day for the recovery or the day of if you're trying to drive performance for that day. Okay. So it's very versatile in that. And even like the ampules too, if you have the bigger ampules, you're only gonna use 1 ml at a time, people preload. So just pull out 10 preload, put it in a Ziploc bag, make sure it's away. You don't want to put Cerebrolysin using the fridge. Will cause some denaturing. Those of all of them, because we'll talk about more later on here, the fragility of some of these peptides, and a lot of them are not really that fragile. They're pretty robust and strong, which makes sense. Yeah. But cerebrolysin is one that can kind of, once it goes cloudy, you tend to get immune response. It's usually the nature of the proteins, and then that causes some kind of a flare-up immune-wise. Yeah. So that's one you don't want to actually, expose to extreme temperatures or anything.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, thanks for clearing that out, because I have a tendency to sometimes I like overreact, because I see, to your point of like the neuroplastic work is like, I think people they always want to say like, what's a peptide for that? And if there's anyone that's like, agrees with that, it's me. Like, I'm like, there's a peptide, for everything. You too, I know you too, but it's also too, like, sometimes I'm like, guys, you don't need, 10 mLs of cerebrolysin every day for 30 days.
There's a lot of other, like, there's like P21, dihexa.
I think to performance wise, you could probably get that as well. I'm also probably, this is like my own bias leaking through, is like, I'm someone that doesn't necessarily need to rely on nootropics as much, but that goes back to when I was a baby, my mom would give me a book and put a blanket out, and I could sit and read a book by myself like a 2-year-old for like an hour, and I wouldn't move. And so for me, I've just
happened for your kids.
I was not that child. So.
Taylor's the exact opposite, and my brother's like probably has to do like I was the firstborn, so like I was like just there with my mom.
Your younger two brothers were not that way.
No, not at all, not at all. They were the, crazy, like go break stuff and, like have to go to the emergency room type activities.
Get lost.
But a lot, like I'm very good at working and focusing. Mm-hmm. That's actually more of like a strength for me, is like, I can work by myself and just like crank. Yeah. And I'm good at doing that. And I don't get like brain fog or anything, assuming I have like my testosterone. Like when I was like severely hormonally deficient, when I was done playing football and everything, my testosterone was like 80, total. I definitely did have issues with brain fog, but like once I got that fixed, I'm not someone that has to like lean on a lot of nootropics. Yeah, of course I'll take like P21 or dihexa or like some of these things, and they're cool to use. I love even like something like teocrine. Mm-hmm. Teocrine like fires me, like I can like bam, take some teocrine. I'm like can like workhorse. But I think a lot of people are not. They don't like Taylor is not like that. Like that is not her proclivity to do. So I'm probably just my own bias comes through, because I like want to be like, is it that bad to like sit down and do some work? All right. So as many people know, Taylor and I are focusing on our fertility journey right now. Alex has been helping us out with that some, but I guess there's probably a lot of people out there in this situation right now. Taylor and I are in our 30s. So some would say like our best childbearing years were in our 20s, but I think we're in a really good spot, especially for couples that may be on hormone optimization and having that as a component. Obviously we've talked to you about that, but what advice would you have, obviously having 4 kids? You've done it successfully. So what advice would you have for a couple like us that's just getting started?
Lots. So we're talking about advice to actually get pregnant, right?
Yeah, let's say that first.
Cool. Just make sure. Then we'll kind of go to gestation,
we'll go
postpartum.
On. Let's go on the journey.
But that's where we're at. We're trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
I think number one, and we talked about this a little bit on that call, but we'll go in depth here.
Yeah.
I think the vaginal biome is never talked about. Mm-hmm. No one talks about the actual pH of the vaginal environment, how important it is for a sperm to actually get in and then actually be mobile enough and strong enough to actually go and fertilize egg. So normally, if you would look at some of the basic fluxes that happen throughout the month. So as you have the first rise in estrogen, rise in progesterone, things like that, the estrogen tends to produce that, it's almost like that gel, like that whitey secretion. Yeah. Normal, it should be like a little bit viscous. Then you have the progesterone, which more comes with like the cream. It's like that thick white cream. That pattern should generally happen. It'll change from female to female, but you should have periods of more of the gel estrogen and more of the like creamy progesterone. So normally that looks like 14 days, whatever your cycle is normalized. Once you can figure that out, once that's hammered down, that's to me usually whenever you want to make sure that global senescent cells are basically cleared out, telomerase and telomeres are accounted for, and then it's really looking at the vaginal biome as well. So this is where like seed makes a pretty good intravaginal probiotic. You can actually potentiate those with like the Lovelux. They'll make an intravaginal red light as well. So you basically put the bacteria into the vaginal biome, activate the mitochondria locally with the red light. It's a simple little protocol, literally usually at nighttime, depending on when you do. Estrogen-wise for you actually, is it oral or?
So I don't do.
Oh,
estrogen.
That's right.
I just do progesterone and testosterone.
Perfect. Okay, so nothing intravaginally.
Nope.
Okay. Oh, that's right. We talked about that.
Yeah.
So instead, since there's no kind of timing problem,
Yeah.
usually before bed, you can use your seed probiotic intravaginally and then basically activate the area locally with about 10 minutes of that intravaginal red light. So that in and of itself, once you know the trends and patterns for the cycle, you confirm that the right substrate's being produced at the right time. Then you back up the biome aspect of it while clearing senescent cells with like epitalin and FOXO4-DRI.
Yeah.
That can then set you up from a vaginal aspect to communicate with the rest of the system. So normally, like even like xenoleutin comes in really as a pretty positive player, because normally like female infertility generally rises because ovary-based mitochondria. So dense in there, there's a miscommunication there, then it kind of shuts down the whole factory. If you want to kind of think about it from that approach.
Yeah.
So that's where like a simple 10-day course, a milligram a day of each, epitalin and FOXO4-DRI, we'll go ahead and clear those out and then push up telomerase a little bit more. I'm more prone to going with the epitalin, obviously, for telomerase, only because if you look at that gestational period, females that have more traumatic gestational periods, their babies are born with shorter telomeres. Their telomerase activity is less. So I feel like I'd rather get ahead of that by making sure that your telomeres are in a better position, so that pass along epigenetic process happens to the baby to where their telomeres are in better positions too.
Yeah.
So normally that's step one. Before we get to male fertility, actually, no, let's do male fertility first.
Okay.
Because it's kind of simple. First of all, independent of HRT. So you can think about them like different cascades, meaning although if you take exogenous testosterone, it tends to shut down natural production, even like Kysotrex and things like that, they'll blunt it. They won't necessarily suppress it completely, but there's still going to be some suppression. So we're trying to push up on spermatogenesis. We're trying to push up on sperm motility morphology and trying to stop DNA fragmentation. Sounds like a lot. In reality, don't touch your HRT or TRT. You can go ahead and layer in the HCG, HMG, carnitine, maybe recombinant FSH.
Yeah.
And then normally you fix the DNA fragmentation with either BPC or TB. The research on that's kind of skewed. I've seen them both work. So I'm kind of like, let's just take both. It's not really going to hurt. And from a DNA fragmentation standpoint, the sperm are fixed.
Okay.
So normally that's female and male fertility, kind of as simple as it can be. It never happens that way because once you try to have a kid, it's like 60 days later, 90 days, usually like a 30 to 90 day window, but there's always variability. For Lila, my firstborn, that was, I'm going to screw up the dates now. She was, I think 6 months, Aiden was 8 months, Apollo was 1 try, and then Gwen was about a year. It was like a pretty even spread. So there's almost no rhyme or reason because there's so many factors to consider. After you have those basics kind of taken care of, then I think something small that like pre-seed. It's that lube you can buy off of like CVS or anything like that, or like Amazon. All that is doing is driving more sperm motility. So female just applies intravaginally before intercourse. And all it does is give your sperm an extra, like just a gliding pathway to get into ovum, into egg, and in that vaginal bowl easier. So
we need to get some of that. We didn't have that.
It helps a lot because one of the things too, that's one of the bigger misconceptions is you can only get pregnant when you're ovulating. And in reality, sperm can live in that vaginal canal for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. And remember, that's normal physiological sperm, not souped up sperm on HMG, HCG, carnitine. So they're more resilient with these chemicals. And so the cool thing about that is now you look at that 1 week window to ovulate, right? Now you have a week beforehand and a week afterwards. So in reality, you can basically get pregnant 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month. That's assuming your cycle stays the same every single time. It doesn't change by a day. Change it by another day. There's another day on each end. So now that's 3 weeks, 2 days. So to me, I think the whole trying process, because it's just like asking someone out in high school. It's a numbers game. Eventually someone has to say yes. Same thing with fertility. The more chances you try, the more chances you actually have. So it's tough though, because as everyone out there has, if they've done that process or you guys are going through that process, it's tough because it starts off being fun. And once you print, it's awesome. Best feeling you ever have. But if it goes too long, you're kind of like, it turns into a chore. And you're kind of like, not this month. And you go, okay, I'm going to start drawing twice a day. Because remember, sperm turnover rates, they have whatever arbitrary numbers out there in the research, which doesn't account for super physiological sperm. Whereas the turnover rate will go up where it's like every 12 hours, 24 hours. Like it's very fast. So you guys could technically try every like morning and night, or just every night or every morning, whatever works out schedule-wise. But you'll start, if it doesn't happen automatically, you try and do more is better and more is never better. It just depends. But usually the frequency should be fairly high. So for most people more schedule wise, if you can do 4 to 7 times per week or more, like I think that's a good range.
Yeah.
There's also myths, like, and I had a girlfriend tell me this, that basically like she could not get pregnant until she basically sat in like a handstand kind of position after her and her husband had intercourse.
So more like hold sperm internationally?
Yeah.
Yep.
She basically
Handstand position?
Not handstand, but like she basically like
she was doing a handstand?
like she basically like propped herself up against the wall for like 4 hours.
Well, that's probably easy. 4 hours?
She said 4 hours. That was a lot.
That's intense.
4 hours is excessive.
Like it's hard for me to sit still for like 10 minutes, let alone 4 hours.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, are those
Is that a myth that like doing that will help, or is it just like
pretty much.
Yeah.
If you look at what's all in sperm, like that ejaculatory volume of being like, it's like 3 to 5 milliliters, something like that. Of that, you're getting like, a milligram of spermidine in that, just rough numbers or whatever.
Yeah.
But in that whole volume, a very small amount is actual fertile sperm.
Yeah.
A lot of it is amino acids and different proteins and just fluids and you could take, like for males, you could take pygium, sunflower, lecithin, and things like that to just increase ejaculatory volume. That doesn't increase fertility. It's just more volume around the actual sperm cells.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she can do it if she wants to.
Yeah.
It's not really gonna do anything.
Yeah.
But if it's fun to do, go crazy.
Yeah. With Taylor, so Taylor's on around like 10 milligrams a week of injected testosterone. That has seemed to help with her ovulation since we've been doing that for the last couple years. Do you think it is okay? So Taylor is not on any estradiol supplementation because she tends to aromatize her testosterone pretty well to where her levels, I would say it's dependent upon the time, but usually sit somewhere like 100 to 150-ish, like depending on obviously like menstruation and everything.
Yeah.
So she does well. I will say though, with the xenoluten, that tends to aromatize, I guess, if that's the way that it's doing it.
Yeah.
So like her breasts are definitely bigger, more tender, which is probably.
I felt like I didn't love the way I felt.
She does not like the xenoluten because it almost is like, do you feel like it's like too much estrogen?
I feel like I have too much estrogen. And it makes me really nauseous.
Is it more
too.
breast or nipple architecture changes, like sensitivity?
I would say it's more breast sensitivity.
So more estrogen swing. So in that case, you're a hyper responder. Cool. Don't touch estrogen. You got it covered.
Yeah.
What you're doing is with testosterone, progesterone only.
Yeah.
So to me, there's no problem with that. I know everyone wonders about, okay, how do I get pregnant on HRT? When do I come off?
Yes.
Once you have that little baby, that little cluster of 60-degree angle cells growing in your system, right? We'll start with 90-degree. Once it starts to actually grow, your placenta and everything starts to already, as soon as you have that little cluster begin, your body starts to release its own forms of testosterones, estrogens, progesterones, different kinds of growth hormones, which like men can't produce. Females can only produce it whenever they actually have a baby, which is really cool. So you keep your HRT in because it keeps you in normal physiological range. As soon as you pee on that stick and it gives you the 2 lines or the smiley face or whatever, and you're pregnant, you stop taking your HRT that day.
What about progesterone? Because like some women do take progesterone like while they're pregnant to help if they've had previous miscarriages to help carry the baby full term. What about for a woman? Because it's also, I get a lot of opinions on the internet with this because I talk about that I do take progesterone every day. And I've played with it recently and stopped and taken it back down to day 14 through 28. Personally, like we all know mentally, I don't feel as good that way. But what about a woman who's on progesterone like me, and then I get pregnant, and would you say to stop the progesterone too, or would you say stay on it?
So most females can get away with dropping everything. And your body will regulate its own production and it should balance out. The caveat though is you're in that 10% outlier. Like that's not everyone's response. Most females can't take progesterone every day. Good amount can, but like that's not the majority. So in your scenario, I'd pull it out first and see what happens. If you automatically regress right back to where you were after 2 weeks, then you bring it back in. Because clearly your biologist just needs that higher amount of progesterone. For whatever specific reason, who really knows, who really cares? If you pull it out and you're feeling worse, and not pregnancy worse, but the same symptoms as you're experiencing now, you go back and bring that in. Because there's no inherent negative effect on progesterone on the fetus, or technically even estradiol in physiological doses. Testosterone, even in physiological doses, you could make the argument it won't harm the fetus. I personally don't think it's a good idea. Because that hyperandrogenic environment can just increase your chances of actually having a miscarriage. So you can have a lot of fetal development problems, spinal cord problems, then also just the sac production around it, right? So the fluid around it will basically penetrate the egg, penetrate a little bit faster, and then fetus, it'll break open, then fetus basically can't feed and then dies off, miscarriage happens.
Yeah.
So technically, I think testosterone, probably not. But if there's estrogen progesterone you need them in, they are not going to hurt the fetus.
Yeah.
I think from a symptom standpoint, you're probably producing so much more testosterone anyway during the pregnancy. Like it's not like you're going to probably, not that it would matter, but if you felt a drop off, just like, oh, I need my testosterone, I don't think that would happen.
You'll notice because you'll have the libido curves and swings, hair growth, skin, like there's a lot of cool things there. One of the things actually that the glowing, it's actually because fetus, the whole environment around, right, produces and releases and creates a ton of Clotho. So that Clotho is actually going back to the skincare. That's actually, I think, how they got the idea, why it started, because they produce that. That's how your skin glows.
Yeah. So,
Placenta.
Which then kind of brings into the question, like, what are your thoughts on capsulizing the placenta or using the umbilical cord for exosomes? Like using
anything like
stem cells, like, anything like that. What are your...
I personally think it's a massive upcharge for something that doesn't make that big of a difference. Given today's society. With how easily accessible stem cells, small mobile stem cells, exosomes, clozomes, like all these things are so easily accessible now. If this was 10 years ago, I'd say, go ahead. But I think the upcharge on them banking them, I haven't seen it make that big of a difference, in all honesty. With people that have banked them, done traditional therapies. You would think, though, because it's coming from you, from your child, better resonant, better spin, more coherent for your biology, I haven't seen it produce that much. And if you're spending that much every year to just bank it, not that big a fan.
I also noticed too, like I recently was listening to something and it was another influencer and she was pregnant, and towards the end of her pregnancy, she already started lactating. And she also started having the colostrum start coming in. And then she was actually starting to pump, even though she still hadn't delivered a baby. It was at the point, like they told her she could go ahead and start pumping. What could a woman do to, like, have we discovered a hack yet to help with breast milk coming in? Because there's some women, they say that their breast milk doesn't come in and then it's like absolutely heartbreaking for them. What
a lot. So first of all, the timeline. Very few people have that happen to them. Normally, you need to have that oxytocin dump. You need to have that golden hour connection. You need to have baby leave vaginal count or leave body in some way to trigger that paraventricular nucleus, cause the whole cascade down that causes that hyperprolactinemia, to cause breast milk production, and to cause lactation as a whole. So normally you need that. It doesn't always happen like that, but probably 80-90% of the time, it only happens postpartum. So if it comes in early, cool. You're ahead of the ball game. You're only producing, you're just basically dumping prolactin at that point. You're not producing any meaningful milk production. So usually that's the milk. Most women, I'd say, just pump and dump type thing. Because that's not really the high quality milk you want. Baby actually has to leave either vaginal canal or C-section, whatever you actually need. Once baby leaves, then milk production actually starts to improve. And so the whole time, though, you can do things to put your breast in a better position to produce more high quality breast milk. So this is where, like, some of my favorite ones, I think if I can only pick 3 things, it would be fatty 15, plasmalogens, and then again, go with a couple different things here, but maybe depending on the day, I would probably say like the algae. So this chlorella and spirulina. If you look at a lot of those and what happens with breast and nipple architecture, we're trying to improve every process of the milk production aspect. We're trying to put things in there that are already there, like fatty 15, which is high, like the plasmalogens, which is high. Then you have to donate more superoxide dismutase to mitochondria to keep up the breasts because your breasts become powerhouses. You're producing, it costs so much energy to not just have that baby in you and build it, then to produce milk to feed it. So you are now postpartum, right? You're not just taking care of yourself. You don't have to produce enough energy, enough high quality energy to feed the baby. So normally, once baby comes out, also the screaming, the crying, that'll trigger the PVN, paraventricular nucleus, and that'll cause lactation to occur. You can also have more mechanical stimulation. So some women, like, say this happens, like you're fine with pregnancy 1, let's say baby 2 comes along and like maybe baby 1, like you didn't have enough breast milk production, you want to come in early, you could do like the nipple stimulation during the final trimester, things like that, just trying to get some activity. The cool thing about it is if you were to scream, her paraventricular nucleus won't pick it up, she won't start lactating. Baby screams, different frequency. It's not the strength, like we said in the beginning, it's the resonant, the frequency. She'll pick up on that difference and she'll start lactating.
Wow.
Same thing happens if you're in the hospital, if you go that route and the babies are on their baby room and everything, and you'll hear your baby cry. Another baby cries, you won't lactate. Your baby cries, you'll lactate.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's kind of cool. You could pick out like, oh, that was my baby crying, you know? But yeah, usually those 3 supplements are pretty big players for breast milk production. Also in this whole, if we're transitioning to that postpartum state a little bit here, mitochondria get severely overworked. Almost every woman I see is hypopolarizing. They're underspinning because again, if you require so much more ATP production and milk's a liquid, right? So you're pulling more of that structured water out of your system. Your mitochondria need a lot more help.
So what are your thoughts on at-home water births versus a hospital delivery?
So always up to everyone's preference, right?
Yeah.
No right or wrong way to have a kid as long as they're safe and healthy. I do think though the safety component, at least in the States, because there's people all around the world that usually do at-home births and they're more than fine. As a parent, I personally don't want to take that chance. If there's a need for a C-section, need for like anything urgent and maybe you don't have access to that, I personally couldn't do that. So we didn't do that for any of our kids. And thank God, or we would have lost 3 of them because Lila's vaginal birth, that was a 24-hour labor. It was the shortest labor we had. Wow. Aiden was in 36 hours and turned into an emergency C-section because he was not coming out.
Yeah.
Apollo, he was a 42-hour labor into another emergency C-section because the cord was wrapped around his neck. And then Gwen, actually hers was pretty smooth. It was still a pretty long labor, but it was like showed up. It was a little bit late or early rather, but it was smooth. But still, we probably would have, lost at least 2, potentially 3 if we weren't in like a hospital setting. So for me, having lived through that and seeing how healthy and happy they are now, I'm like, I'd rather just have that insurance policy.
Yeah.
So personally, we went with that route, and I would advise that route unless if you're like dead set on the at-home, then cool, do you.
Yeah.
But just know the risks.
Yeah. So Gwen, was she vaginal or was she a C-section?
No C-section.
Okay. Okay.
So usually you can't.
Usually you can't really
after
go
you have
back.
one C-section, the second one they're called a VBAC. You can go back to a vaginal birth. If you can't do it after the second one, chances are you won't do it for the third, and then there's more of a chance of like female actually rupturing, having real health problems, consequences.
Yeah.
So to me, usually after the first C-section, if you don't get it back the second time, you're probably destined for C-sections.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which makes it also tough too for more kids too to like kind of know that that's probably going to be the likelihood of
right.
Yeah,
because we're 4 kids deep, 3 C-sections.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, 5, I hope it happens. We're talking about it, but there's also the potential risk. And after 4 kids, body takes a beating.
Yeah.
But scrolling back a little bit, let's say someone chooses to go not at home birth or in the hospital. I think it's important for the guy to really be aware of his responsibilities. Because in that scenario, like your job is to be as comfortable as possible in a lot of pain. Which you're going to like, you can scream, you can shout, like everyone's always, I've never been to a bad ward. Everyone's so nice in those specific portions of the hospital. It's their job, right? But they see life like they're meant to be. Like those girls are the best. We had a great experience with ours.
Yeah.
But usually I don't see the guys stepping up just because I don't think they know. So like with us, I realized right out of the gate, you have to monitor heart rate, you have to monitor blood pressure, you have to make sure that the monitor they put on the belly is actually making sure you're picking it up. Because if your baby starts to decel, you don't catch it in time, then they can easily stop breathing, cut off oxygen supply, and then brain damage at best. Or you have, something even worse than that.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it's really up to the husband to really be proactive with that and not just monitor the whole time, but also have I have a go bag. So it's like a red light, near infrared. I have everything I need to do to stay up for 2 days straight. Because since our labors were so long, I'm like, after you had your kid, you're going to be up. You're like, I'm on dad mode. Like, I gotta make sure you're going to make sure baby's good. So like, this is whenever you take your nootropics, your Cerebrolysin beforehand, because
go into a bag with Cerebrolysin and modafinil into the hospital.
I brought everything I needed, and then things for Lindsay if she needed them, And so I think it's important for the guy to know, like, hey, that's your time to really step up and really know what's going on, and to monitor, and don't be afraid to really speak up to the nurses, because although that is their job, they know what they're doing. It's not in a negative way. Like for Lindsay, for example, our first one with Lila, nurse, because you all swell up, so veins usually disappear hard to get a needle in for an IV, stuck her like 6 times, and then our blood pressure dropped and she passed out. And so after that, I was like, okay, you're done. I took the needle. I did it. And so like moving forward from that, it's not being mean. Like I don't want to be that guy, but I'm like, this happened the first time, you got one shot. Are you the best person here for this?
Yeah.
And if they're not, they're so respectful. They say, nope, let me get someone else. And then they'll come and do it first try.
Yeah.
But things like that, like don't be afraid to speak your mind and really stand up for what's going on. Because they're not doing it to be negative or mean. It's just, if you know, like you're afraid of something and going into it, make sure you have those conversations.
Yeah.
Because like Lindsay's worst fear, my wife's worst fear was that she'd have to have a C-section. And so going into that second one with our Aiden when it was an emergency C-section, it was terrible because that was her worst fear. And as a husband, like you got to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
You have to be able to handle that emotionally, physically, and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to understand going in, obviously shoot for vaginal. If a C-section has to happen, like you guys have those conversations.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? What's going to happen? And I also think that golden hour post, so right whenever you have the baby, holding that baby as soon as you possibly can, that's what turns on, because babies come out, their organs aren't fully developed. The whole organogenesis process happens over the next hours, days, and weeks up to a point. So to me, what I've always thought of creating that resonant state between mother and baby and dad and baby is that moment. Because to me, that's when mitochondria of those babies, they're looking around. They don't know what's going on. They can't pick up on anything because it's so new. So it's your job to introduce them to you. They can pick up on your resonant spin. Their cells can start spinning the way you're spinning. Mitochondria go, oh, that's mama. Or, oh, that's dada. And then they can pick up, and then babe can start to, like, literally, if you don't do that, baby's organs don't grow properly. And there's been a lot of sad cases where the babies were, you know, mom pushes them out and then she's like, you know, can't see it, adoption type thing. And it doesn't get that golden hour. Usually a lot of the nurses, like, I don't know if they're allowed to do that or not, but I think a lot of them will hold them.
They will.
Because you need that just to have the baby actually develop. And I think that's just super important for both of you. Mother first, obviously, because you put up through all that for 9 months, but after that, it's dad's time to step up, you know?
Have to walk in with a checklist.
So did you do chest to chest with yours?
Yeah. Shirt off, chest to chest. You want skin to skin. You want that emotional connection. And you'll like, I always cry over everything. Lindsay always makes fun of me because I'm more of the girl in the relationship, but like I was bawling. And like the scary one was for Apollo because his was an emergency C-section. He was our third kid, right? And they had to rush her back. Or no, we were going back for a C-section rather. Then a new nurse came on for her shift and she said, I don't know what happened. I just got here, but they said, you can't come back. It was an emergency. We don't know what happened. And I'm like, are they okay? She's like, I don't know. And I have
like goosebumps.
I'm not a violent person at all. But I'm like looking around the room for things to break. And I'm like, because that's your first instinct, like protect and that's your job. And if I can't do that, what am I worth? And so they left and I'm in that room just thinking and thinking. Then eventually she comes out and, you know, says everything was perfect and fine. And again, he was our surprise. So actually Lila, we knew for sure. Then after that, they were all we waited to figure out the gender. And they wheel him in and he pulls a little diaper back and a little wiener pops up. And I was like, we got a boy. And they recorded. So I have the video. I'm crying. I'm bawling my eyes out. And it's just the coolest experience of your life. It's so emotionally draining. And so this is where the transition from hospital to home goes. No one ever teaches you this in school. No one ever prepares you for this, right? I think it's usually taught where you see both dipoles. You see the polarity, wherever it's the best thing ever and it's the hardest thing ever. And everyone only talks about those. They don't talk about the middle ground. They also don't tell you that all of a sudden someone says, here's this life, go home and take care of it. And there's no instructions. Like you don't know what to do. And like you're leaving the hospital. I remember for us with our first, we're like, they just like trust us to go home like a baby. What do we do? You know? And in reality, to me, if there's love and care, that's all you need. Because if they're crying, if they're tired, they pooped or they're hungry. That's it. That's all the baby's really crying for. And so if you can get ready, because I think the first 6 months of having a newborn is, I think, one of the hardest things anyone can go through, because with your first kid, you think it's forever. Like if no one has this conversation, which we didn't have, a lot of people don't have, you're like, how can I be this sleep deprived? How can me and my wife no longer have that good of a connection because you're up every 3 hours feeding baby throughout the night. No one's sleeping. Everyone's sleep deprived. You're still trying to take care of yourself. Your hormones are flexing all over the place. Postpartum depression rates are now, it's like 80, 90% of people, which they still don't give that enough credit. And then you're trying to hold down the fort with working and taking care of the house chores. Like it is the hardest 6 months But like no one says that.
Yeah.
Like they say like some little tidbits and highlights, and it's not as a negative because hard doesn't mean bad, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But if you're like prepared for that, it's like, okay, I can plan things.
Yeah, you
around
know, like,
Yeah.
okay, 6 months, we got to batten down the hatches and like
exactly.
be ready.
And then the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like the more kids you have, the older the kids get. Like it definitely gets easier the more you do it.
Yeah.
And like we personally never experienced the terrible 2s or 3s or whatever people say. I think there's beauty at every stage.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be hardships, but like
Yeah.
to me, it's so cool. Lila's 6 now, and like she has friends and like a boyfriend. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's cool to see.
Yeah.
And then you got the baby side of things with Gwen, where she's just rolling around. She's doing her little princess wave, like kind of half princess wave. It's also beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, you should talk about the negatives.
Yeah.
How it's like, you know,
Yeah.
the ball and chain saying about
Enjoy it
like,
now, or
life.
you're never going to get your life back.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
Yeah.
like, to me, that's when my life started.
Yeah.
When I got married and had kids.
Yeah.
You know?
to go back really quick, back to like hospital and delivery really quick, because there are like really mixed feelings on this. Like, what are your feelings on epidurals?
Yes. So I think epidurals have been used pretty consistently, pretty prolonged period of time. And there's a high amount of safety with epidurals. I think it's also the female's choice from a pain aspect, because some women will have a 5-minute labor. No big deal.
Yeah.
And you have my wife where it's 24 plus hours. So to me, it's not just a pain conversation, but it's also how you want to personally have that baby.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I personally think the epidural on paper is more than fine. I don't see damaging to fetuses. And this is across, I think at this point, it's in the thousands of people I've helped with this fertility process,
Yeah.
journey, postpartum, everything. I haven't seen any birth defects, any kind of brain dysfunctions. There's been no health-based problems, nothing from kids that are born with a mother that had an epidural.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen it. Now you also have people, and I don't want to take anything away from those people that did have that happen to them. I also don't know if it was the epidural.
Yeah.
Or if it was something else or something else done during the gestational process, or there's so many
Tylenol.
things-
You know,
Exactly. There's a lot of things going on that I think are contributing factors,
Yeah.
but I don't think the epidural is going to be one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
That
it's
sounds terrifying to me, an epidural. That-
yeah.
I saw that needle.
That 31 gauge
I saw that
sometimes is
needle
too much
going
for
into
Taylor.
my sister's back, and I was just like, I don't want that.
And you
That
can't
carnitine
move.
needle sometimes is too much for Taylor. The glutathione needle.
Glutathione, I can handle glutathione, let alone an epidural.
Women have so much strength, and in that moment, you'll find
know.
new levels.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I got choked up again. I'm crying again. I got choked up watching Lindsay do that because I knew she hates needles.
Yeah.
She's taking this like 4-foot needle in the back, you know?
Yeah.
Well, do you think though that after that, if you can do an epidural, you can do a peptide needle. You can do a glutathione shot.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you can do that, you like
Oh,
you'll
yeah,
get
but that's the men mentality.
I know.
Yeah.
It's the day to day.
it's not me. I don't have to go
myself.
through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to go
Yeah.
through it. So
Yeah.
Taylor and
Yeah,
I
I think-
sometimes debate like pain tolerance. Like, do men or women have more pain tolerance?
Women.
I'll say outside of, I'll never go through childbirth. So yeah, I'll give it to women for that.
Yeah,
So,
I think they deserve it. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like I can't imagine having a vagina number one and
Yeah.
pushing something out of it.
Yeah.
Well,
I saw my
it's-
sister push a 11.5-pound baby
Good sized baby.
out of her, completely natural, no epidural.
That's nuts.
sometimes I
Nothing,
actually
like-
think women have more nerves in that area. So sometimes injections
yeah.
actually hurt them more
Oh, in their stomach, like
in their stomach, or maybe even
Yeah.
in their like that whole area is much more organ dense than a man because you have
Yeah.
much more machinery down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that vaginal bowl is dense.
Yeah. So like maybe
clusters.
that's why like a lot of women struggle more with injection pain from just like your peptide
Yeah.
Yeah, I
and
can see that.
hormone injections.
You know?
Who knows? But to the question of like postpartum, why is that? Because I mean, I'm sure that's been a human thing, right, for thousands of years. But is there anything to help with that? And Taylor and I have talked about this before because we've talked to a lot of people that we've coached that have had postpartum. Like, what is a good strategy for mitigating some of that hormonal crash that's coming out of the pregnancy?
So a couple things. First of all, again, if you Google it or chat ZBT, whatever,
Yeah.
right? It's going to come up. Don't take anything. It's all terrible for you.
Yeah.
And so in reality, when I first started this fertility world, it was like, hey, that's all I know because that's all I can research.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you look mechanistically, and then eventually you'll find people that are like, I want to try that. It's like, okay, let's try. Let's be safe. And that happens again 100 plus times later. You go, okay, cool, no problems with that. We could probably proceed pretty well.
Yeah.
Then you start to understand what's getting through breast milk, what's not. You're looking more at small molecules passing through breast milk. You're not seeing larger molecules pass through breast milk. At the same time, you could make the argument you don't want to pass down anything. So you could, like certain women I know have kept in, not that I advised on, but they kept in GLPs during their pregnancy to keep inflammation down because they were honestly more worried about their figure, which, sounds terrible to say, but that was their decision. And obviously you don't know, but the potential implication is then that child is now born in a different GLP and bacterial environment. And so they may not have the same hunger hormone signaling systems that we do. Like everything.
I feel like that make
skewed.
them malnourished in a sense.
Exactly. And those babies, at least the two that I remember off the top of my head, they were like 5-pound babies.
Oh man.
And they to me, we've had 8, 9, 10, we've had I think sturdy babies.
Yeah.
Sounds better than saying fat babies, but we've had big babies.
You want a fat baby though.
You do, because the whole thing's about birth weight. That's the other thing. Going home, the first thing you have to worry about is getting weight on that baby. Because you want to be like 10% up birth weight. And usually a little bit more, at least at birth weight, like a week after you leave the hospital. So you get at-home baby scale, they'll lose no matter what by the time you get home, but you want to get back to that birth weight and slowly pad them basically. Because if not, one little immune system, one little infection, things like that goes wrong. And then they stop eating, losing weight, throwing up, danger zone.
Yeah.
One of the first things is to start to actually make sure they're eating enough and then getting birth weight back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the postpartum, like Taylor and I have wondered, is there peptides, hormones, progesterone?
Yeah.
I would imagine she would go right back on testosterone during the lactation period, probably.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Normally you can keep in, you don't have the estradiol, but you can keep in the progesterone, stay in the whole pregnancy or immediately afterwards. SS31, I found coming in amazingly well.
Yeah.
Not just for, because again, mitochondria and breast tissue producing that much milk, your brain trying to keep up with the sleep deprivation, vaginal biome, because you either have cesarean or you have a vaginal birth. That's trauma.
That is,
Your vaginal bowl is going to be bleeding, stretched out. That's if you don't actually tear that perineum layer. So before, they usually say the final couple weeks, you get olive oil, rub it between your perineum so you don't have that tear from hole to hole, which happens.
That happened to one of my sisters.
You can heal it pretty effectively, but that's where mitochondria need a little more love.
Yeah.
So SS31 comes in pretty amazingly well. We talked about all the breast milk production peptides. One of I think the best ones for postpartum depression is oxaloacetate. Stabilized oxaloacetate from Benagene. Again, good company, great guy behind it and everything. Alan Cash, really cool dude. Only talked to him once or twice, but I think that's better at pulling down glutamate than anything out there. Also fixing NAD to NADH ratios. So you can literally cellularly, your cells will feel like they're fasting, but they're not. So technically you're having a hypocaloric state or hypercaloric state. You can feed baby. You can nourish baby. You can nourish yourself. Your cells can heal themselves. You can drive autophagy. You can fix that NAD, NADH ratio flux, which goes down as we age or in high stress states like postpartum. Kind of a win-win. And again, I think they say don't do it on breastfeeding, but that's kind of everything on a bottle of a supplement. I think don't do it on breastfeeding just to save
liability.
Exactly. And I get it. But usually that and saffron, over-the-counter saffron. Tropics Depot has that amazing one, higher crocin, lower saffronol content, 30 milligrams. That'll at least push up GABA while you're pulling down glutamate with the oxaloacetate. So that'll usually fix the neurological side of what happens with postpartum depression. Then you have the SS31, more to fix overall global fatigue, vaginal fatigue, breast-based fatigue, things like that. And then you're kind of see where hormones are falling. So that's kind of the tough part because you're in this in-between state where you need enough calories to produce in order to fuel baby. But at that point, you're also I want to get my life back. I want to get back to my body. And so a lot of women will try and diet. And that's obviously the worst time. Because then hormones will flux more and then you just won't get lean anyway because you'll still be trying to produce breast milk. So normally more of a stable diet, increasing calories, not a ton, usually a couple, 200 extra calories, nothing crazy like that. Keep hormones stabilized with what you were taking. You said you don't respond well to xenoleutin. Other women, you might bring that in then. Small molecule could pass through breast milk. You're not one of those candidates, so we won't use that. But this is also where the glutathione and vitamin C drips or injections, those will really come in just to balance out your overall fatigue. And there's a lot of little things you can layer in, but it's not a matter of just the hormones. It's the whole system being fatigued. Because if you were not that stressed out, your hormones will be fluxing fine. So if you're trying to get that flux back, you just got to restore and pull down systemic fatigue, restore normal healthy levels. So you would treat it like that. Normally something like NAD is Not something we like during the gestational period when you're actually pregnant, but postpartum more than fine to bring in, but you will have higher CD38 and NNMT levels. So you will want to manage that.
Yeah.
Nuchido makes that cool product with Japonica sephora and like some parsley and things like that. Natural to just bring those down. I wouldn't like a JBSN F0008 because I just don't honestly have enough experience with that in that specific postpartum scenario. So why risk it? We can manage NNMT with something else.
Yeah. 5-amino. Would that be,
What about,
or is that too much for that?
Sometimes. So it can hyperpolarize pretty quickly. So you have to be a little bit cautious with that. Whereas SS31, it very rarely hyperpolarizes anyone postpartum.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, I don't want Taylor to think like I've got to get my body back like right away. One, because we want to have hopefully 2 kids.
Yeah.
I'm just much less concerned with your physique in that I would even say like a 3 to 4 year window.
Yeah.
Because like if we say we have 2 kids and we decide like that's what we want, 3 to 4 year window to have 2 kids, and then you got the rest of your life to do it.
I agree with that.
Versus like I think a lot of women stress about like, oh, I got to get my body back, and
a lot of it too, just to interject, is at least from like the female psychological state that changes, is now you become a completely different human being once you have a baby.
Yeah.
And it's not even about so much about how you look, it's how you feel. Because you spend 9 months getting larger than you've ever been.
Yeah.
And you put on a pound of fluid every week in the final trimester. Most women, again, the morning sickness could be here or there. You could have it the entire time.
Yeah.
Or you could feel the best you ever felt your entire pregnancy.
I had both my sisters were opposite. I had one that like loved, she has 4 kids. She loved being pregnant. I had one, she only has 2 kids, big age gap between them because she didn't love being pregnant.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part, right? Because it goes beyond just the body. I think it's more of the desire to reclaim you.
Yeah.
Because you do, like, you end up losing yourself a little bit during that whole gestational and postpartum process. And so that's where I go back, like, to the guy. Like, I think that's our responsibility as men to make sure they get that back. So it's picking up all the little stuff around the house so they can only focus on sleeping, feeding baby, and trying to get themselves back to it.
That's why we pay people to clean the house.
I mean, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, too, so like transition, like, okay, let's say like we've gone through that. Let's say we want to have like 2 kids and again, that like 3 to 4 year window. Would you recommend for me staying on HCG, FSH, HMG, those things? Like, let's say like the day she gets pregnant, baby number 1, okay, should I just plan for the next few years to stay on those, even if it's not like as a high a dose as we would if we were attempting to get pregnant, but like a maintenance dose to like make sure I don't fall off?
Exactly. Keep the fertility lights on. Just go with a low dose of HCG or enclomiphene, like just one, just enough to keep things firing. Because no matter what, if you've been suppressed for how long, once you restart this fertility protocol, it still takes time to get those cascades going. You can produce enough sperm, but honestly, the first couple billion sperm are respectfully retarded. They're not functioning right. The motility's poor. There's DNA fragmentation. Like, they're not good sperm. So usually there's the initial 30 days anyway where we're kind of clearing. So it's easier just to keep them on. So like for me, Gwen is now 9 months old and I've kept HCG in the background the whole time. Just in case, because if we want to have a kid tomorrow or a year from now, like, it's always the potential.
And then you're like basically like already out of the gate if you do, and then just want to throw the other things on top of it.
I told Lindsay I'm not, getting snipped, because I want to keep just having babies.
I think
not with her.
We were actually talking about this the other night.
She didn't appreciate when I say that. She'll love that.
Do you think? Well, let me ask you this. Taylor and I talked about this. Let's say we have 2 kids, and Taylor is like 38, 39. We're like, okay, we're done, but we don't maybe want to turn the lights off. Would it be beneficial to like have her eggs frozen? I'm not saying this is like a thing, but like let's say like 4 years go by, we have 2 kids, and it's like, man, we really want another one for whatever reason. But she might be like up in age. Do you think it'd be beneficial to like freeze her eggs after we say we have 2 to like be able to do another one? If that is something to like where we may think, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's also too, it's like, if you're done, you don't want to necessarily like rule that possibility
also,
out.
egg retrieval is not a comfortable procedure for women to go through, because I looked into doing that prior to meeting you. Like it was like a few months prior to meeting you, I was looking into freezing my eggs because I was paranoid.
It's painful. It's expensive. It adds up.
So in that case,
you
like
could. I think it more depends on where you guys are at. Of course, I don't think that's a right or wrong answer for that. It is a viable route. There's multiple ways. Like to me, I don't think there's a wrong way to have a kid.
Yeah.
So if that's something you guys think that you get to that point and you think it's a good idea, go crazy.
We'll see. I mean, I think that's like
that doesn't appeal to me right now. Okay. Like I would rather adopt a child.
I'm saying like we're thinking 2, get to 2, see where you're at. I would be happy with that. Obviously, got to get 1 first, but get to 2, see where you're at. And
twins right out of the gate. You never know.
Our neighbors actually 2 doors down.
Our neighbors, they
just had twins.
They just had
That's a good one,
twins.
Clomid. So Clomid on paper is supposed to produce twins 25% of the time. Right?
Wow.
So I have 4 children. I've tried Clomid because I wanted to knock it out of the gate with 2.
Yeah.
Never got a kid.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's N of 1. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I've tried Clomid with so many people who wanted twins.
Yeah.
Or as all they had access to, and twins would be acceptable because they just want to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And of all of them, I think I've had maybe 1. Maybe 1 pair of twins.
So do you think it really is more of a genetic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because like it would be cool if there was that one drug. It's like, oh, you could just, fertilize multiple eggs and then you could have 2 at one time.
Yeah.
But I just have not seen that actually play out from what's in the research compared to thousands of people.
Yeah. So we're excited about it, and we will see what happens. Maybe the next podcast we'll have a little baby. We'll do it.
Cool.
So switching gears a little bit, you mentioned FOXO3.
Yes.
Not to be confused with FOXO4 DRI.
Yes.
Can you tell us, because I don't even know, can you give us like the lowdown scoop on that and see where things are going with that?
Yes. So the whole fork-head boxo family, group of transcription factors, so they basically encode and do stuff. Mm-hmm. You have like a central nervous system one. You have more of like the FOXO4 DRI one, so that, detro inverso basic one. That's more of like the senescent cell clearance player. 3 is cool. So 6 is the CNS one. 1 is more of like the myological one and everything. But 3 is the one that is more like close to longevity. That's closer to the one of like regenerating and actually driving the refusion process between like vertebrae and things like that. So you dig deeper in the FOXO3 and it starts to sound similar to KLP-1, where it's doing a lot of cool things, but differently. One of the coolest things I think it drives is BLC2 or BLC2, this 19 kilodalton variety. So it's actually called BNIP3, but this BCL2 variety is what actually drives the cleaning process of mitochondria. So as you drive this BLC2 19 kilodalton variety of proteins, mitochondria clean themselves. You can't really stimulate that effectively. You can do it with like ergothioneine over the counter, but it's only physiological stimulus. This gives you that supra physiological stimulus. So cleaning of mitochondria goes up to kind of a whole new level with that BNIP3 stimulation. What's even cooler is it can keep stem cells in that quiescent state. So it can basically not release stem cells too early to where they just get recirculated. So you can also increase stem cell renewal and viability. So the whole stem cell process essentially gets improved because you're only going to release them at the right times. So you could technically, if you're holding on to those stores till you need them, you can release more at a more viable, proper time. So you start looking at the stem cell encoding and the epigenetic changes from there. And you start seeing it starts pulling down on all of the negative genes and pushing up on all the positive genes. So more of the negative genes, like traditional ones that encode for inflammatory markers, it'll start to literally encode them down and push them downward. A lot of things in the longevity recovery space start getting stimulated with FOXO3 that FOXO4 DRI does not. It also drives autophagy and senescent cell clearance and mitophagy that much better. It clears out all the NLRP inflammasomes in like mitochondria and in the brain. I think usually that NLRP3 inflammasome is like the big thing that causes vascularization, the calcification. So a lot of athletes have that. So like the high calcium scores in athletes that overtrain all the time. I see FOXO3, like if we compare it to like VD11 and KLP-1, KLP-1 does everything. Like that literally like, to me is the best of all of them. VD11 is more of like the muscular and the neurological player. Then FOXO3 is more to me like just straight longevity. Straight stem cell donation, stem cell improvement, and overall clearance and cleanup, healing. So that's like to me of all of them, that's more of the longevity molecule. Now, problem with that is it's pretty chemically strong. Like we said, the strength is not what we care about here. We want the right amount. We want the right frequency, the right pattern. And we have done, normally there's this range that exists if you're healthier versus if you're dysfunctional. The more dysfunctional person could take 100 micrograms or so every single day, if not more. Whereas the more healthier you are, you're looking at like 10 to 100 micrograms a couple times per week. You can even do something like 50 micrograms 1 week on, 1 week off. That's a pretty traditional protocol I've used for like people like us that are fairly healthy, but you want like that extra push on like biological age and improving that. But I think FOXO3 fits better into that like pure longevity category. Whereas KLP-1 does everything. VD11's more like a basic recovery player, but not like that's like a muscular tissue player. FOXO is like the cellular recovery player. So it's cool. I'd like to say it's like 100 times stronger than FOXO for DRI, even at clearing senescent cells. Again, whether that's actually true number wise, I have no idea, but we can use a fraction of the dose and get better results. It's like before we do like a stem cell procedure, not SMS cells, but traditional stem cells that would have like copying of genetic information. You can clear out senescent cells with like, again, 100 micrograms one time of FOXO3. Whereas FOXO for DRI, like I tend to like a milligram a day for a couple of days, or like some higher bolus dose, maybe a day of 5 milligrams. So there's a big disparity in terms of chemical signaling potential.
So it sounds like it does everything that FOXO4 does, just a lot better and at a fraction of the dose that you would use, like the 1 milligram for.
And FOXO4 doesn't quite do the same thing with stem cell viability.
Gotcha.
You also have that too. So then you're also like a stem cells procedure, you're potentiating that. Then everyone else, like you're still potentiating that aspect too.
So all the people that get stem cells done, they say they don't get anything from them or they don't work. Maybe if they use FOXO3 before, it at least gives you a shot. Like maybe you're, doesn't hurt.
There's also a lot of bad stem cells out there.
I think the clearance of senescent cells is a big one. I've taught a couple clinics. I've talked about it publicly, hoping more people catch on, but like a lot of people don't. And I think usually if you look back, you're right. Like it's usually people that don't clear out senescent cells and don't go into procedure with a pre-op and post-op protocol. You need to go into it ready. That means like technically best case scenario, you're getting the static off your body before you go in for that procedure. So that would technically bring something like grounding, or doing something for like the magnetoporation of like an ARC PEMF device or something like that. So you can get more, substrate into cells, dump more out, and then form it, make it more rigid again, and then have that electron actually bounce back and forth. So technically, if you're doing like stem cells, exome procedures, right, or at least you want to get the most out of them, you would have an entire week of some kind of like a deload scenario. Maybe you're being hypercaloric, maybe having more exposure to, again, like a PEMF ARC device, something with the magnetoporation, something on the non-coherent EMF side of things, bumping up healing peptides, then you get your stuff done. Because then you're in the right environment to actually receive, because they're all just chemical signals. If you can't receive them properly, you're getting a fraction of the signal. That's why, like, we didn't talk about SMS cells, correct?
Not yet, no.
So be a drink of water or my intra-workout shake.
Well, it's interesting. So would you say in hierarchy, maybe KLP, kind of like a daily player, right? Would that be like a daily player that you could use?
Correct, yep.
VD11, would that be a daily player, or would that be like a cycle thing, maybe 8 weeks here or there? Would that be like a cycled one?
That could be daily, but I'm starting to favor more of a rotation with
More of a rotation. Okay, so like let's just say...
I don't see you needing that much healing if KLP-1 is in. So I'm assuming these are like stacked.
Yeah. So like hierarchy would be like KLP-1, daily player, kind of like almost like an add-on to the HRT. So we have like TRT, growth hormone, and then KLP-1 kind of like in that bucket. BD11, maybe we have that like cycled Y. So we have that like, just say 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off or whatever, a few times a year. And then FOXO3, would this be more of like, kind of how FOXO4 would be like, 1 or 2 weeks here, like boom, you get like a milligram a day of FOXO4. Same thing with FOXO3. So kind of like a short term thing that would not be even like a longer cycle, just kind of like a short term window.
Pretty much. You could also do it if you wanted to do it longer term, lower frequency. You could only be on like Saturdays and Sundays if that's like your recovery days. You can plan it only on rest days. I'm trying something new now where it's KLP-1 in the background, VD11 1 week, FOXO3 the next week, and then we're rotating in that fashion. We're honestly, again, because these are so new, we're still figuring them out. But VD11 is definitely more of the couple times a year, I think. Long term, that rotation, like 8 weeks on, something like that. And FOXO3 would be more of the even more infrequent player. Unless if you're dysfunctional, more dysfunctional you are, more cellular damage. Or if you're an athlete who does require drug testing, that changes everything because you only have so many tools over there. And again, if you're dysfunctional, you need additional chemical pressure.
Do you think, we're talking a lot about GLPs earlier, take those three things, does that make GLPs a lot less relevant because like of everything that's happening? So let's just say I want to do a GLP for a microdose. If I have those now, maybe I still use a GLP, but I think a lot of people have become reliant on the GLP for like, it's like their appetite or fat loss or whatever. Do those create the cascade? So like we're maybe
a replacement.
Yeah. It's like where maybe we don't need as much of a GLP to achieve the same results.
yes, because they'd be pulling on the inflammation.
Yeah.
They're not really like the beta oxidative body composition players.
Right.
But like from a recovery and inflammation standpoint, you're right.
Yeah.
So it's like even though it's a different cascade, the same end fates occurring, but it's happening at orders of magnitude more so.
Yeah.
So I would kind of like slowly move away from like the microdose of GLP for inflammation and replace with something like this. If you don't have access to this though, then you do have the microdose of GLP.
Yeah.
But they could be like the next iteration of.
And it'll take probably a year or two at least before synthesis and all that like catches up.
Yeah.
Because right now there's one person in the world doing it.
Yeah.
And like there's finally a second person doing KLP-6. Clotho Protein Peptide 6.
Talk a little bit about that because I've read some stuff on that as well. KLP-6 versus KLP-1.
Yeah, so KLP-1, overall player like we talked about. KLP-6, basically the same, but renal specificity. So you're looking more for like CKD, like more like kidney failure people like that. If you look at the nephrons, so glomerulus, proximal, distal convoluted tubule, then that loop of Henle down here. I've seen it fix vitamin D metabolism in that distal convoluted tubule. I've seen it fix some proximal tubule-based problems in terms of how people handle fluid dynamics and things like that always get shot off because blood pressure shoots up if you have kidney failure because you can't regulate those fluids and ions properly. KLP-6 does that dramatically well. So KLP-6 is more specific to that, only for kidney failure. It seems to not do much globally, which is it seems to have more specificity to that organ site specifically. Another one that falls in that category a lot of people don't know about in that whole category is that sigma-1 intracellular receptor. So that it's ISP. So that intracellular sigma whole molecule as a whole, that's kind of only for like spinal cord dysfunction and damage. It does some things in the brain. You could use it as a phone nootropic. I've done that before. It works pretty decently well. There's better options. But like ISP, sigma-wise is like purely spinal cord and brain trauma. Doesn't really do too much or have too much spillover. So like KLP-6 and ISP are kind of over here where they're very beneficial, but more for specific situations. And then ecophalin, that's another big one. Another new one that like we kind of introduced to the market. That is essentially like the endogenous opioid growth factor. So you can basically wean off of your opioids. You can reduce pain receptor and TRPV receptivity. You can improve dopaminergic transmission. So if you take too much though, anhedonia, because you're going to overstimulate dopamine receptors. I don't think it's a dopamine decay receptor standpoint, but it's definitely overdriving dopamine to the point where you do become anhedonic. But pulling down IL-6 and all those inflammatory markers like ecophalin does an amazing job. It's mainly the biggest player though. I really like it more for like the pain receptor sensitivity standpoint. You can get people off of the GABAs of the world and all those things that are pretty harsh on a lot of people's systems. So ecophalin works well, but that's another more of an infrequent player. You could use it long-term if you have chronic pain. I'd prefer it to be more of an infrequent player though.
It'd be amazing for people trying to get off of kratom. Because it
works super well.
It's such a big issue right now.
I talk to people all the time about kratom, and kratom's an awesome tool. It's just now it's sold at like
the gas station.
It's so easily abused, and people don't know about it. Or don't know its potential negative.
I thought I heard Mark Bell and Chris Bell because Chris Bell's talked a lot about that. The ones that are sold at the gas station is actually not like the natural kratom. It's like the enhanced version that's much more addictive.
Me and Mark literally talked about that.
Really? Yeah. So like, it's like the worst version too. Like not only is it like bad, but it's also like the worst version too that people are just getting at the gas station.
Addicted. And it's just that habitual nature. And that's where like ecophalin comes in, either catwab or like a 9-MEBC to fix dopamine receptors because they get decayed from the process. But it's harsh to come off of for a lot of people.
It is.
Do you, so let's say KP6, what was the other one? The intracell ISP. So those would be more intracellular sigma. So those would be more like acute interventionary ones. So like, we're probably not going to feel anything from KLP6, right?
Not
the way we would from KLP1.
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
You'd see like EGFR go up a couple points, but like you don't need that because EGFR is probably like 100.
Yeah, exactly. So like, what's it going to do versus someone with like an EGFR of like 30? Probably going to make a huge difference, or someone with CKD, like you said. And then metacalfin, would that be beneficial to the average healthy person like us, or would you say that's more acute as well for chronic pain or someone, is like struggles opioids, trying to come off opioids, whatnot?
So you could really tank inflammation by taking it. So like I sometimes take it like only on Saturdays or Sundays if I like really trash myself for that week. Because it's like with my normal schedule, I still train twice a day. I still have all the kids, all the businesses. Like certain weeks I'll hit Saturday, I'm like, I don't feel 110%, I feel 109%. I don't like that. I'm going to take my metacaphalin today.
That would be great, even maybe for like even jet lag and flying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Really
and
good.
that's just peptide type. So it'd be like lyophilized and you reconstitute it. Use what dose would that be for?
So for metacaphalin, you can go, it's tough, 100 to like 300 micrograms.
Okay.
But that's a soft 300 micrograms. Certain people just don't get the same pain reception changes and they have to push up to 500 micrograms. But I'm a bigger fan of those lower doses because it's pretty strong and it will cause more anhedonia if you kick the dosage up. ISP, I've actually seen some 100 micrograms to like 1+ milligrams, something like that. If there was like a spinal cord that was severed, or if you had like went to a different country and a worm chewed a hole through your brain, you're trying to regrow the brain. Yeah, that's happened. Have you ever talked about that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that sounds like something here on National Geographic.
I know that it's happened, but it's,
No, it's disgusting. So I had one individual, this was more of a high profile, like the people with like billions of dollars to do whatever they want type thing. We were consulting beforehand just for her daughter's health. And then traveling, this happened and she was like incapacitated. Like she could talk and everything, but literally, I don't know exactly how she got the worm traveling abroad, but we actually had the PET scans and everything, brain MRI wise. You could see like literal holes, like almost complete circles through her brain. And we went through a process of ridiculous, again, in this scenario, I don't want it to be glamorized. But like she lived on Cerebrolysin. We pushed a ton of TB500. We did have things like Clotho Protein Peptide 1, metacaphalin for the inflammation side of things. We did a lot with magnetism. So we did have kind of like a God helmet-based setup where more 8 hertz wise to more rehypertrophy the right cortical region. But then we'd also hit it with some different, I'll say different frequencies because I don't want to get into it too much here. But at the end of, and by the way, this entire time, just a little anecdote, she never lost her memories, right?
Wow.
So you would think if hippocampus was chewed through because there was damage to her hippocampus, she would, wouldn't have memories. So in terms of where you store memories, looking at magnetic field around the head type thing. Hippocampus is a vessel antenna, but
there's that story. There was like a guy in the 1800s. It was like the first like medical case report, I think, of he actually had like he was working on a railroad and like a pole or something like went through his brain.
Ooh, okay.
And he actually lived. They like pulled it out. He like missed a chunk of his brain, but he was still able to like function and everything. But to the point, probably a lot was like actually outside the brain, much more than we actually realized. You know,
and you still need that as the receiver, the antenna. It's still important. But like she never lost her memories. Either way, did a pretty cool protocol, and we were able to. We still have the scans. Everything completely regrew. Went back to her normal life. Haven't talked to her in a while, but. Went back to seemingly having no problems. Wow. And I don't say that to glamorize like these crazy big protocols or whatever, because it was expensive and ridiculous. They're super fun to do because they're very finessey on my end. So it just seems so elegant on paper. But I think it more reinforces like the potential strength that all of these molecules have.
Well, just for also to the average person that just wants to get a little bit healthier, like that you can harness, like there's a lot along the way that you can harness some of that. Like if there's stuff out there that can do that.
Yeah. If you can like regrow your brain, you can lose 10 pounds and lose your brain fog.
Exactly. Whereas like to a lot of people, that seems like a daunting task. You brought up 9-MeBC, which I don't really know too much about. I've gotten asked a lot about it though. What would be a good use case for that? Cause doesn't it like restore dopamine function? So like, is that something you would take as a nootropic, or is that actually like reserved for someone that like has anhedonia through like whatever, something that's happened to them, maybe head trauma, maybe worm in the brain, whatever happened. What would be a good use case for that?
So it's chemically strong. Of anything to push up dopamine, I'd put this on par with like maybe like a modafinil, Adderall, like depending on who's responding and who's taking it. Dopamine can get jacked through the roof. So that's awesome. Because it's more chemically strong, you either need to be more dysfunctional to need it daily, or it is that infrequent player for that dopaminergic drive, that neuroplasticity change, and it's one of the only compounds that really repairs dopamine receptors, like actually rebuilds those receptors.
What about like postpartum? If like someone like went through like a miscarriage or some like postpartum like stress like that?
Yes. So normally, so with a lot of those like traumatic events, the sooner you can get to it, the better. Meaning you have to actually, ideally, you would completely abolish mTOR for 72 hours because you can stop the refolding of memories. And then you would afterwards replace that with a back-end dose of like really high dose 9-MeBC. Like we're talking like 100 milligrams, like doses I kind of don't feel comfortable saying on here. But usually you're taking like 10, 15 milligrams like a normal dose. That would be more of a traumatic scenario where you're trying to really erase a memory. So you stop the folding of memories first via blunting mTOR, which could be really pushing up rapamycin to crazy doses, which is a good long-term in this scenario. It's worth it. And then back that with 9-MABC. But normally 9-MABC to me it could be an infrequent player, but 10, 15 milligrams. It's not a frequent player unless if you have like the post-finasteride syndrome or like real bad anhedonia or like you've really just destroyed your dopamine receptors with modafinil abuse, Adderall abuse, all the kind of amphetamines.
Yeah. Do you think for people with the GLPs that get anhedonia from GLPs, it could be potentially beneficial?
It's a nice transition drug.
Okay.
And you'll slowly work it out and usually replace that with like a Subroxy or so like a dopamine reptic inhibitor supplement wise. Or like a Catuaba or both of those. Rotate those. So you're trying, if you're tapering, if anyone out there is like addicted to any kind of medications, drugs, supplements, whatever, it's such a high chemical signaling compound. So pick one below that, taper, pick one below that, taper, come back to baseline.
Gotcha.
And so that could look like, again, we'll say Adderall abuse to 9-MABC to Subroxy and Catuaba to nothing. Or like different iterations of that, but the chemical potential and strength going down each time.
Yeah, that's, I think a lot of people, more people than I realize deal with dopamine deficiency or could be things too from like addiction components, like video game addiction or
things social media components. Massive.
Yeah. I wonder if someone's like addicted to social media, if that would actually like help wean them off if they were trying to get off social media.
It does. Yeah. Usually you have to handle the screen component. And the magnetic component. Because most of those people, if they're addicted to social media, they're normally not having anything to blunt. It's not even blunting blue light. It's getting more exposure to near infrared. So even like the first change I'd make is, hey, if you're going to be on your phone, go to one of your panels, one of your red light panels and turn on the near infrared. So you don't have to see it, but it has to be on. Do that for 1 week. So then if they're there, again, it's not the blue that's so bad. I mean, technically that lower spectrum, that, what is it, like sub 50 nanometer or 450 nanometers below those are sub 440. That's like the bad blue, whereas the upper end of like 450 plus in that nanometer range for blue is actually beneficial. But you're getting a lot of the negative aspects of the negative portion of blue light and no near infrared. You can replace the near infrared. You can, I think a company has, I can't remember the name of the glasses, but they have those glasses that are allowing the positive blue to come through the lenses and blunting the negative. Those are pretty cool glasses. They work pretty well. And then you would slowly layer in like those other players too.
Shifting gears a little bit, because it's definitely a topic I wanted to cover with you. Let's talk about non-androgen muscle builders. Ooh. So if we were going to, which I think is like a conversation of itself, is like a lot of people shy away, it seems like recently, like with androgens in muscle growth, which I think is like probably a mistake. Meaning that like, if you want to put on a little bit of extra muscle, I think it's a very reasonable conversation to talk about HRT plus or sport HRT, of like temporarily going up on that to put on an appreciable amount of muscle for longevity purposes, and then returning back down to baseline and keeping a good chunk of that for health purposes. Like, you know, our muscles are metabolic currency. So like doing that, I think people shy away from that because they're scared of, you know, like, oh man, if my testosterone goes up, especially women, right? Because like women, you know, they don't want to virilize, they don't want to masculinize. And so there's been a big push or like gravitation towards some of these like non-androgenic muscle building, whether it's like myostatin inhibition or whatever it is. Just give us your lay of the landscape of where you think we sit with that and like what the future of that looks like.
So if we broad spectrum, go over myostatin first, right? Because there's all these different ones coming out, like TDF alpha, follistatin that's been around for all these different ones, right? They work decently well. I think of all of them, TDF alpha works the best. It's not commercially available. It's very hard to synthesize. Like that's a whole process in and of itself. But I feel like that cascade myostatin wise has been almost beaten to death. I feel like we haven't found like that next myostatin inhibitor to really do what we want it to do. If anything, we get the Decarin management from growth hormone that then, it would push up to pull down myostatin. So if anything, it's either high androgen levels or higher growth hormone intakes that will modulate myostatin more so. I think all the other myostatin inhibitors have their place and purpose, but in the athletic populations, if you're a powerlifter, strongman, bodybuilder, androgens and growth hormone, like the tried and true, that still lives up. That does enough to manage myostatin. As you transition to the longevity community, if you don't have that androgen backbone at a super physiological amount, which we don't want that, right? then you're trying to look for something else to build muscle. That's where this conversation comes in, right? You can't push androgens crazy high. So instead we look to other players. So I think one of the better ones would be exogenous growth hormone. Now, again, it doesn't have to be a half an IU or a quarter of an IU. It could be 1 or 2 or 3. You can work it up. And as you kind of progress beyond 3 to 4 IUs, you're kind of like in between that range. So I think from the management of myostatin and everything in that world, I do think the growth hormone really comes into play because as you push up DECA, what growth hormone does, it'll pull down myostatin. So I think if we're looking at that in like this longevity community to build more muscle tissue, but try and be as healthy as possible, you have a pretty big range. Like usually females are taking a couple of IUs, right? Men are usually taking a couple more. So I see like right at that 3 to 4 IU range as being into the athletic world where you're potentially maybe running into problems. Versus the longevity dose of like 2 IUs, 3 IUs or less. Now, in reality, if you are controlling blood glucose, if you're controlling HbA1c, plasma insulin, cystatin C, if you're looking at all of your blood markers, there's not an excessive amount of inflammation, no vascular calcification. Like if those aren't happening, not having blood pressure swings, then growth hormone's not going to cause any negative consequences long term. The only thing there is if you have a tumor, it can proliferate it. So you go to Cancer Check Labs, you check your CTC, so it checks for circulating tumor cells. If you have a tumor, it's going to pick it up. So you automatically know if you have cancer or if you don't. It doesn't tell you where it's at, but at least that tells you. So if there's no familial history of cancer or if you know you're in the clear, then as long as you're working up growth hormone slow and steady, I don't see the negative repercussions everyone talks about. I remember there was an older study about intracranial pressure going up with growth hormone, and I don't think I've ever seen that in reality until someone hits their max dose. So for most women, I think it's usually about 3 IUs. It's about a good range. Usually above that, a lot of females tend to get more fluid accumulation and then problems, glucose dysfunction. A lot of guys, probably 4 to 6. And I think those are being conservative numbers. I have seen women go higher and men go higher and still not seeing long-term consequences. We're talking about 1 to 5 years because I've worked with certain people for like 10, 12 years. And a lot of those people, we've stayed with them for long periods of time. They're in that older demographic. You just don't see those things happening. So I think from the whole myostatin world, I do think growth hormone is still one of those better players. I think like Tadef Alpha is a pretty cool myostatin inhibitor. I think the follistatins and things like that, I think we need like a little more love there, a little more research there. Because we're not seeing the application hold up to ever. We're seeing some cool things in application, but not being as applicable as like universally accepted with growth hormone and things like that. So then we kind of sidestep, right? A weaker player, but something that still works pretty well, especially for females, is always injectable oxytocin. We will drive that biotransformation process of adipocyte to myocyte. So that's where all the original Trenbolone research got blown up because it stimulates oxytocin to X levels and drives this amount of mTOR and anabolism.
Oh, I didn't. So is that why people like get super? They're just like on trend. They feel like I'm like crazy because they have like
oxytocin 24/7. So that's like the biggest driver on it. The interesting part about that is though you don't seem to get the same muscular changes if you do intranasal. It's more of the localized injections post-workout. So if you're looking at like muscular mononuclear communication in a highly traumatic environment post-workout, that's kind of the most like receptive time to give yourself these molecules. Problem with oxytocin, if everyone's taking it, you take too much, you feel like you're having a heart attack. You're having that head pounding, ears pounding, that head rush, like it feels odd.
Be close to a toilet too.
Exactly. So you want to make sure you work up to a dose before that. So I always say start with 10 IUs and slowly work up. Usually around 50 to 100 IUs is a good place post-workout, split bilaterally in the muscle you trained. There's potential for it to drive localized muscular changes. Nothing really in the research, but I've seen it happen. Those muscle bellies hold on to more nitrogen. They look around their flow, they recover faster. So I go with what works. And if you stay in that range, 50 to 100 IUs, you usually don't experience those negative effects. I'm someone who personally, I can't tolerate oxytocin above, what is it, like 20 IUs, something like that. Which actually going back a little bit to the magnetic side of things with Brandon's ARC device, I removed the metal around the vial of oxytocin. I did an experiment. So I'm trying to structure that water, get it more cohesive, more coherent, so it can basically cause those protein molecules to communicate better, right? Should have coherence. I had one valve oxytocin out, reconstituted, another one reconstituted, put it in the middle of the coil. I would play with the frequency in the field, depth of field penetration to try. And so when you work with water, it's like a 6 to 7 minute window I found where you can give it enough stress, but back off so it doesn't turn too rigid and kind of turn it against you. Kind of like whenever lightning hits it and it kind of like rigid, like stiffens up. And I did that for a couple passes, and I did the 1 day of the normal vial, and 20 IUs gave me the head rush. I know that. So waited another day, did the same thing. 10 IUs did not give me a head rush because that was the vial left out. So I know 20 IUs, that's my range. did the same thing with the one from the ARC that I basically structured the water with. And I started with 5 IUs, didn't feel much, 10 IUs, head rush. So there was technically a 50% change in the negative side effect profile, which meant we caused more cohesion between the protein molecules and more communication between the proteins in there.
Yeah.
So going back to structuring peptides and molecules and things like that, just because we're talking about oxytocin.
Yeah.
But either way, going back to the anabolic benefits, females respond extremely well to it. Usually it's, I don't want to say the word tone, but usually that female conversation is, I want to be toned, I want to be hypermuscular. They'll exceed that toned look pretty quickly. So it's going back to not exceed that hypermuscular look. It's usually on the upper body. A lot of females don't want bigger biceps and shoulders.
Would it be site injected for females into the glutes area?
Yeah,
so you would
glutes.
like inject that in their glutes? Would you like IM? You know, like, okay.
And you can just do shallow, 31 gauge, 5
just do it, but just do it instead of like into the fat, just like put it more into the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it's, you're getting so locally applied anyway.
Yeah.
You're just looking for localized receptor mediated clearance. Because it's going to come and go globally anyway, but those initial molecules will ping off those local receptors and cause an additional chemical signal from that initial ping binding, whatever you call it.
Yeah. I tried for a while. I did 4 administrations of oxytocin per day, but I did it in a nasal spray just because it was kind of
like morning, noon, night. After.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
So there's a study, I think it was an 8-week study in humans that it actually, for weight loss, if you did 4 administrations a day of 50 micrograms, which I want to say is around 20 IUs, because I think the IU conversion of oxytocin is like 2.5.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's like a weird number, whatever.
30 minutes before meals.
Yeah, so I do 50 micrograms, 30 minutes before meals 4 times a day. It does work. And that was with the nasal spray. I would imagine that the injection, which would work more. Just I didn't want to load a bunch of syringes. I probably could have made it into a pen. I just, for whatever reason, didn't when I was doing that. It definitely does work. What is interesting about oxytocin, everyone loves GLPs, right? If you want appetite suppression, the appetite suppression you get from oxytocin is very real, but it is much easier to tolerate because what's interesting, and this is shown in this study, people eat to satisfaction, but they eat less food. So whereas the GLP, you're eating less and you know you're eating less because you kind of feel like a little
sick.
A little sick or a little like nauseous or whatever. Not too bad, but like that, it's kind of that GLP feeling of like,
I can't put any more food in my
I cannot put any more food.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oxytocin, you enjoy the food more and you just by nature eat less. So it's actually like a better appetite suppression. Granted, it's in a very short window because it's not like a GLP that's like lasting the whole week. But I will say that like there definitely was like a physique component of that. Probably would have been enhanced if there was. Like I just felt leaner, and also too, I ate less, but I enjoyed eating less. Whereas like, because we like to eat, like we like food. Is like with a GLP, is like you almost don't even enjoy the food. Whereas the oxytocin, you actually enjoy the food, probably even a little bit more because of like the oxytocin there. So I thought that was interesting. But again, it's one of those ones you really, to get that effect, I noticed you kind of had to do it like 3 or 4 times a day. You know?
And with oxytocin too, the one thing, if you're going out in public with oxytocin, technically it'll cause you to be more sympathetic and fire up your amygdala a little bit heavier. If you're introduced to more like a scenario you don't know. So usually I tell people, because you could use it for the nootropic benefits, the muscle building benefits, all these things. If you're going out into an environment you don't know, I say don't use it because you can use it to drive aggression. So in the wrong scenario, again, because if you're in an unknown scenario, you will more fire the amygdala. Whereas if you are more in a known scenario, like more of an intimate scenario, it'll drive more erectile performance. It'll drive better orgasmic potential. So females will have that 10 out of 10 orgasm every single time. You go out in public, it could be the opposite response. So it is environmental dependent as well.
That's fascinating too. I didn't know that about tren. You know, what's interesting of tren. I've never done like high doses of tren, but I'd say like up to 200 milligrams a week. Granted, it was a nanthate instead of acetate, which you come up a little bit more on. And I've done that a few times and I don't get like super aggressive at all. I probably am a little bit more like driven. Maybe it feels more like dopamine, I guess. It probably isn't, but like I would say like I'm a little bit more like driven. But if anything, I have worse side effects from taking like Masteron where my estradiol will crash. That is like bad news for me. When I crash my estradiol, my mood is terrible.
I'll even
but
say,
interestingly,
what's going off your estrogen because this is not good right now.
Interestingly with tren though, in like, 8-week cycles when I've done it before, like 150 to 200 milligrams, for me, it doesn't make me like crazy or anything like that. But it's funny because of like, that makes sense with like oxytocin now, like of how there's a relationship there, but it's also too, like if you don't want to take tren, well, there's some oxytocin, you're going to get some of the muscle building benefits too. And to the point of non-androgenic muscle building, I think that's huge because a lot of females, it seems like, I think more males, if they're in this world, they're comfortable. Hey, I can run some, TRT plus, and be okay and kind of get what I want. But I think a lot of females shy away from that because they're like, I don't want to go too high on my androgen. And then what do I do? Well, I think there's like, obviously, let's talk about growth hormone. Let's talk about oxytocin. At least they're a little bit more tried and true before we go down the route of like start, pulling levers that might have more long-term negative side effects than we would want to see.
The exogenous insulin.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you about that too. So like, I don't talk a lot about insulin because I want people to be like very responsible around the use. Obviously too, it's also kind of like, if you look at the numbers, like the LD50 of insulin is a lot higher than people probably realize, but you also have to take into the equation of like, everyone's a little bit different insulin sensitive, it's like a little bit, but I tell you what, Taylor and I were talking about this the other day because I haven't used insulin in a while. I probably just need to anyway right now because I'm not trying to be like super lean. And so it's like, you'll get like a little thin layer of water like that you use insulin. So like if you were doing a photo shoot or whatever, you're not going to be your like absolute leanest if you're using insulin. But I tell you what, I think, controversial opinion, insulin could actually be a longevity compound. Meaning that when I take insulin, the way I respond to food, I feel like I'm 18. Again, like when I was a football player and like I just had this like massive response, like my body would just like soak up the food. And again, to the non-androgenic muscle growth drivers, we know insulin is pretty doggone safe, right? And the amount of like muscle growth and like look that you can get on a pretty low amount of insulin is crazy. So why don't you talk about that? Because I would even say like, I've heard people make the argument, that's a pretty good argument, that like insulin up to like 5 units a day could be like actually beneficial for longevity.
So I think the biggest misconception or why people go into those polarity of the camps, right? Those polar opposites is because you hear the word insulin, chronic hyperinsulinemia, which could be eating McDonald's every single meal, being insulin resistant, having a plasma insulin score of 20 plus all the time. That will calcify and cause more arterial plaque accumulation. That will cause oxidation of LDL particles. That'll cause all the health problems, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking Lantus every single day, long-acting compound or like the other long-acting ones, that will also put you into more of a hyperinsulinic condition all the time. So same kind of thing. That's not really in the like the longevity community because they're using it. Certain people use it to manage glucose levels. Plasma insulin levels are crazy high, still causing inflammation. Sidestep to the left and go with your Novolin or your Humalog, which you can basically make Retatrutide in and out of your system. You're hyperinsulinemic for anywhere from like 1 to 6 hours, 1 to 4 hours, depending on how fast you metabolize it. So then you're looking more at a dose equation. So now from a dosage chemical signaling aspect, the Humalogs, Novolinars, and Apidras, if you're staying sub 5 IUs for the majority, that's going to put your hyperinsulinemic score 12 to 15. And that'll depend on what you eat and all that stuff, but that's transient.
So probably better than like 90% of the population walking around.
Exactly. So what you end up doing is in a pre-workout scenario, you are fueling lactate metabolism. You are fueling ATP replenishment. You are stopping that over-excessive catabolic cascade to drive more anabolism post-workout. In the post-workout scenario, post-training, post-event, whatever, you can hyperstore glycogen. You can pull in more nitrogen into myocytes. You can put more where you want it and away from more adipocytes, which are holding toxins and just causing more inflammation. So I agree. I think in the right context with everything we said there, insulin could be used as a longevity drug and molecule. I think the discrepancy is always just saying the word insulin.
Yeah,
here's
insulin, a lot of negative connotation.
Like,
exactly. It's a crazy high dose or the duration or the frequency, like all those things. That does make a difference, But I think sub 5 IUs, like I've taken 5 IUs of insulin almost every single day for coming up on 6 years or so. And I've only used it with benefit in all of my blood work, all of my scans, like literally every single thing has improved. Again, N of 1 doesn't matter so much. So look to the other hundreds of clients I've worked with over those years and same kind of thing. People are getting better. People that are abusing insulin in other sports out there, they have the heart attacks and the arterial calcification and even a lot of plaque accumulation, tau protein wise in the brain. You can see the difference. So we're talking about proper use versus abuse. So I agree.
Yeah. Well, I know like when I've used it in the past and I have blood tests done and typically my fasting insulin is always below 5, usually around like 2 to 3. So it's like if you're using it. And typically what I would do, I don't know what you would suggest for a protocol. I would do like when I'm starting out, like 2 IUs pre-workout and 2 IUs post-workout. And for me, like I felt amazing on doing that. And obviously just make sure I had carbohydrates, 30 to 50-ish grams of carbohydrates pre, 30 to 50-ish post with that. And then usually I would have like a peri-workout carbohydrate, like with Targo or something like that I'm drinking while I'm training. And I feel amazing when I'm doing that. And both Taylor and I, when we've done that, the results are, for physique purposes, I mean, that
it was good.
Having tried myostatin inhibitors, and I'm not like saying anything negative about myostatin inhibitors that are out there, I think it's been superior in my experience using those. And again, that's one of those things that like we know for a fact is relatively like healthy. Like we can say like within parameters, like if we
I feel like it's a more sustainable muscle development too.
Yeah.
Whereas in like the myostatin inhibitors can like almost give like a water fullness.
Oh, we should talk about that real quick, actually.
Yeah.
I can't remember who said it was from someone I liked. I don't know personally, but they said that follistatin it was all myostatin inhibitors cause fake muscle.
I've heard that as well. That it causes almost like a water retention type muscle that will go away after using it.
Yeah.
Yes. No. Okay. That's why I want to say it. Okay. Respect. I forget who said it. I remember liking the person in general who said it. So it's not like anything negative. That occurs in like cell cultures or anything where there's no mechanical trauma or stimulus induced. So the whole myocyte maturation process starts with a spark of IGF and goes through the whole nuclei, nucleus, fiber, and then assignment process to give you a functional fiber that does stuff. So myostatin, the pushing up of decorin, the modulating of follistatin, all those things go in conjunction with that process.
Yeah.
So if you were to take, say, follistatin by itself, like that's going to happen because you'll create basically like little water balloons. We will store some fluid and nitrogens.
Yeah.
But I don't know anyone who's taking follistatin by itself. As soon as you induce a mechanical trauma, flux a little bit of cellular pH and just like literally lengthen and load a muscle, that kind of goes away. So you're actually building real muscle with it. I think, and again, I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember the slides that were posted up, but it was more in isolated scenarios and it wasn't the right demographic because we can pretty reliably look throughout history and see, okay, if it was any kind of myostatin inhibitor, you see real muscle being built. You don't see water bags or sacks. But I have had people that want to do the old basin studies. So it was only androgens, no training, and they built some muscle, but it's the same similar look. It's not quality tissue. It's almost just like more retention. It's more ions, more fluid, a little bit of nitrogen, a little bit of glucose, but like it just looks like a balloon. It's really weird. Same thing happens if you just take follistatin. Doesn't happen with growth hormone though. But if you take just androgens or follistatin, no training, you get that look. But I don't know anyone who's actually doing that. So I remember seeing that a while ago. I never made a video about it because I didn't know how to talk about it. But I think that was kind of a little bit misleading because it doesn't.
Well, it's kind of one of those things like on paper, mechanistically it will do this, but that's not real life. Because people live lives, go to the gym, and do stuff. I think to that point, do you think, so we have like hypertrophy and hyperplasia. Is a myostatin inhibitor causing hypertrophy, which would be the growth of existing muscle, or hyperplasia, which is actual formation of new muscle cells?
I don't see them as being mutually exclusive.
Okay, so it's
because
simultaneous.
to me, that's the same thing with androgens, with growth hormones. I don't think it's as simple as a binary, only hypertrophy or only hyperplasia, because you can only grow in size so much before you need new bundles and new fibers. And not only that, but what if you go through more like of an alactic style of training and all of a sudden switch glycolytic, right? Then you have to create new fibers to accommodate the load. But those alactic fibers, they're not just going to atrophy and just like spontaneously combust. They're going to stay there. They'll probably store less glycogen because they're not being utilized as much, but that hemodynamic flow of those types of fibers versus the more superficial type fibers, like you're changing the priority, but you're still having the fibers there. So I don't think it's as simple as, it's also like the fiber type per muscle group. It's not like all this is fast twitch or slow twitch. It's a blending of each. It's kind of like what the rear delts and the posterior and anterior delts. Now there's like there's 3 heads there all of a sudden. Like people can just kind of figure that out. It's like, it's not as simple as like just one muscle belly, one fiber type. To me, it's a conglomerate. So I think they're always in conjunction, and maybe certain ones will favor hypertrophy or hyperplasia. But at the end of the day, once you cause the growth of new ones, you have to increase their size. So then hyperplasia becomes hypertrophy. hypertrophy.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like, it's like chicken and the egg, mTOR, AMPK. You have to have both of them. So to me, it's more of a cyclical nature, polarity, like we say.
Yeah. So just to kind of go in summary, let's say you have a female, pretty fit, like she's the goal weight she wants to be and everything, but they want that like extra 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. Would you go hierarchy wise? I would think HRT first to a level to like where androgen load is not so much that they're going to masculinize, but you need some HRT. I think if you're going to put on muscle for a female. So HRT first, and then I think growth hormone next to add in, and then potentially insulin next. I think if someone does those things, they're going to get pretty darn good results.
Yeah.
Especially within like a 5 to 10 pounds of muscle to get the size of the glutes or the size. Most women don't want bigger arms, but like this, the definition in the arms. Also, I forgot oxytocin. So if you had those 4 things right there, I think you can get, would you agree or disagree that you could get about 90% of the physique goals that someone would feel good about like posting a picture of themselves with?
You would need something to put more pressure on mitochondrial systems.
Okay.
Because you'll burn through substrate faster. So you have to fuel that and back up that ATP production process. But yeah. Like
so would that be like a MOTS-C or
I usually SLU for like the body composition changes. MOTS-C to me has always been the intermediate player between longevity and body composition. And SS31 tends to be more of like the healing agent, fixing the escaping of electrons, restructuring water, things like that.
Yeah.
You can use them all for similar purposes, but I think SLU is more geared towards that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think right there, just having used all those, having seen people use them, that's like pretty good, like stack to get most people in the direction they want to. That's also relatively affordable.
Since we're talking about female glutes, if we're talking about localized glute expression and growth, then I do think the IGF DES has come in to locally spark IGF maturation. And then even like some of the transdermals, like transdermal BPC 157, to drive more vascularization to the area. So if you get more vascularization in the glutes, usually better contractility, better recovery, but even more so than that, if you look at like fat loss for the glutes, love handles, things like that, they don't get a ton of temperature fluxing. It's not like your quads, right? Like your glutes will get some, but that lower back upper glute insertion doesn't get a ton of temperature fluxing. So those adipocytes have a hard time liberating. So you could do like the topical, like Vasoburn, like Matt Porter's old company with the capsaicin and yohimbine and things like that. But also the BPCs tend to work pretty well from like a vascularization standpoint.
So we know BPC, I think, increases growth hormone receptor density or sensitivity.
And it also increases heat shock protein 90. So you can get more angioreceptors sticking around more to basically suck up and pick up more ligands.
So could you inject IGF-DES into the glute and then rub some BPC transdermal on it? Would that potentially be synergistic?
Yes, but the timing wouldn't matter as much.
Okay, so like, as long as you're doing it like
exactly, like
so at some point in the day, you don't have to do it like right after
together.
But like there
post
could potentially
workout, like IGF and even Increlex, so like straight IGF-1. Ideally, this is done post myotrauma. You have to set up growth hormone receptor expression. So it would be like essentially weight training, come home, post workout meal, eat some growth hormone, 60, 90 minutes first pass the liver, and then your IGF variety. If you're trying to be like as optimal as possible, but still in that post-workout scenario for glutes, you just split bilaterally and rotating, not every like single injection, but every other workout. That tends to be enough.
Hypothetically, if you had Increlex, what would be the dose? Would it be similar to the dose of IGF-DES?
Lower.
So
for most people, so it's tough because, so this is where we leave the longevity conversation.
And we enter into performance.
This is more like athletic. You're definitely going to be down regulating hepatic systems, renal systems. So different conversation. But in this world, usually like I even like as low as like 10, 25 micrograms and slowly work out from there, only because the degradation rates can be so high. So you don't know that 5 milligram per mil is really 3 mgs or 2 mgs per mil. You can easily go hypoglycemic. Like someone I know.
That was story for another time, story time. But that was the problem too, because like pharmaceutical Increlex, I think is 10 milligrams per milliliter. And so like getting 25 micrograms, I wonder, do you think you can, I mean, this is complete speculation. Do you think you could dilute it down with more backwater?
Not the
probably because it doesn't have.
They have specific mixtures for like like Mr. Increlex in France, like that whole stuff from like the bodybuilding world.
It's probably not all backwater
Yeah, no.
in it.
Yeah,
It's not like a lyophilized thing that's like backwater. So you couldn't really just dilute
But then
it
the
down.
other products, I'm not sure. So you would just have to look and see what they're actually reconstituted with.
Yeah. Well, good. I think at the very least, IGF Des, that's relatively
that's
easy to get,
yeah.
and you can dose it because it's like usually lyophilized at the point. So
And since we're on that topic too of all the peptides, peptide fragility, Increlex is one of the biggest ones with the higher fragile scores.
Yeah.
Where you leave it out, it degrades fast.
Yeah.
Whereas the BPCs, the TBs, the KPVs, we talked about this a little beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's like if you look at the pHs, like again, BPC is about 7.0,
Yeah.
TB 500 is about 7.4, KPV is about 6.7.
Yeah.
You guys know that, by the way, with the kids?
I heard of that. I was like 6'7". I said that to Taylor the other
My
day.
daughter
like,
does it all
I don't
the
understand
time.
it. Like about 6'7", you know, like
I don't get it either, but I have to say it every time. And they always do this. So for anyone that has kids out there, they'll appreciate it. I don't get it. But either way, growth hormone peptides like a 5.5 to 7.0 range. GLPs are like what, 7.0 to 7.4, 7.5, 7.6.
Yeah.
Depends on the product, the amount of backwater, the reconstitution amount of the lyophilized powder. That all changes the pH. pH is dynamic. What you care about more is mainly extremes. So like the copper and methionine conversation, where one will basically, catabolize and cause a lot more catalyzation of the other and destroy and denature all the proteins in there. That happens at like a sub 4 pH and a plus 9 pH. So unless you have that polar opposites, they blend together pretty well.
Yeah.
Along with the fact that they're pretty dynamic from a pH aspect. So these things will flux and they'll try and stay in harmony.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not doing things poorly, if they're not, poorly sourced products, if you're not combining like hydrophilic and lipophilic compounds, so fat loving versus water loving.
Yeah.
If you're avoiding those basic things, the majority of your peptides are not only going to reconstitute fine together, but then they can also be left out at room temperature for pretty decent periods of time and not have problems.
it's interesting. There's a study on MOTS-C. So there used to be this big debate.
Yeah.
Probably still is about MOTS-C. You had to mix it all right away because it only lasts for 15 minutes.
Yep.
5 milligram, 10 milligram, you got to take it all at
I heard
once.
5 seconds.
Yeah. Right. Countdown is on. You mix that, like pull it out. To which I would say, like, I would advise people not to do that because if you started a higher dose of MOTS-C, I've seen people have like anaphylactic reactions to it. Yeah. Well, you could also go hypo too. So I actually started doing some research on this a while ago. There's actually a published paper that they mix MOTS-C with backwater. And I think after 30 days at a pretty hot temperature, it was in Celsius, but I want to say, if I remember right, it was around like 100 degrees Fahrenheit that it was left at, like warmer than room temperature. I don't know if
I think it was like
90
98 to 105.
Yeah. And it was stable out of the fridge in that heat for 30 days mixed in backwater. So I think in some cases, obviously we want to refrigerate most peptides because that's like the best practice.
Right?
Yeah.
A sterile, normal, controlled condition just for safety.
Yes.
Testosterone.
Well, there's also a debate
I'm
about
just
like
kidding.
the testosterone being left out at room temperature. I've always said, hey, all I know, I'm not a chemist. All I know is I've refrigerated testosterone and it's always done fine for me. But the real question is, why are you using testosterone? Just use growth hormone is what I would say to people, because I think testosterone is better than nothing. But I think
But even at that though, like I'm pretty sure people have done enough of the studies, right? They've actually sent in for testing to see if it's been left out or in the fridge.
Yeah.
And they're coming back with like the same purities, they're coming back with the same degradation rates. Like, I don't know if it is more like a views thing. Like again, hey, this is a different idea.
If you want to get views, if you're an up and coming person, you want to get views, the inauthentic way to do it would just be take truisms that like most of the community would agree on and just say the exact opposite, because a lot of people get scared in the peptide world because they're like, it's all new, right? So like a lot of people are like, they're relying on influencers for information.
But it's really not that new.
It's true.
Like
It's
decades of this stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's popular now. So you're right.
It's newly popular.
Yes. Yeah.
right.
Newly popular. There you go.
And so people get scared because they're like, oh my goodness, did I just waste all this money doing this? Because I'm like kind of scared, and like a lot of people too, because of the injection barrier, I think in their head, they're like, for someone to like inject something for the first time they ordered off the internet and to do that, that's like a big barrier for them psychologically to reach. And so when they do that and then all of a sudden they find out like, oh, maybe I did it the wrong way because someone's like preying upon their fear, it kind of creates that. But I think long story short is that like most peptides are a lot more stable than we probably think. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have best practices around it, but I think for the most part, like obviously you wouldn't just go like mixing 17 peptides in one syringe and just praying for the best, right?
Yeah, that doesn't sound too smart.
But I think for the most part, like most people are operating within the confines, like they're doing the right thing. And we've done enough, like we've been around long enough, like where we've seen seen this and, it's gone well.
And yeah, think back to how many peptides you've reconstituted normally. No aggregates form. There's no cloudiness. There's no injection site irritation. Like you only feel the positives.
Yeah.
And that's, you go through the list of all of them. And as you're kind of younger in this peptide journey, you might get more lazy as you move forward, but yet it stays the same.
Yeah.
Like the very few, at least I've found for myself and a lot of people, it's like very infrequently. Do those bad things happen? The injection site thing can happen more so. People get adhesions. They don't like rotate injection sites or they're just not sterile practices or it's poor backwater, like something like that. But I mean, other than that, I don't see people having a lot of problems with the peptides. With reconstitution, with storage, like it's kind of basic to me. Avoid extreme temperatures and don't like whip it around. And even at that though, I want to actually send one in reconstituted and see how much it degrades in transit. Because even at that, I don't believe, because we've done that with growth hormone back in the day where you shake it up and you get that tested and you're not losing that much. Because the moment you rehydrate those proteins, degradation begins. But if you're losing 0.00001%, like it doesn't add
practically speaking, how much does that matter? I think very little, if at all.
Exactly.
So
still be safe, still do things smart, but you got a pretty big leeway. If you leave it out overnight, not a big deal. Put it back in the fridge, you're good.
Or if you're traveling and your ice packs don't stay cool the whole time. Or if you're traveling fast and you're going to be somewhere in 24 hours.
Actually, traveling does change things. I'm glad you said that.
Oh, because of the pressure.
Because of the pressure in the cabin.
So you have the radiation of everything that's getting scanned going through security, number one. You have the pressure from the cabin change. You have the hypoxic environment. You do actually have some changes there. That being said, though, it's probably not that much. But it would be more than like normal.
So I always, if I'm bringing peptides, I always put them in a check bag. So at least I maybe skip the radiation from the, but I get it for myself. So thank goodness it's there to radiate myself for the machines. But at least my peptides are safe. But I usually put them in a check bag. But I know a lot of people will put their peptides and then like bring them on with their carry on and whatever. But I didn't think about that, like with the pressure change and then also to like the cellular imprint of the water.
You could technically put it in like a Faraday bag. That at least helps with like the non-coherent EMF exposure. It doesn't really do much for the pressure changes. So you're kind of, but even at that, the pressure changes are fairly minimal to affect those proteins. Like you could take your ketones and that'll negate a lot of the radiation effects on you, but you can't like pour ketones into your BPC,
Well, we've been going for 3 hours and this has been amazing. Just in closing, I wanted to ask you, you're the one person I know that maybe not has a crystal ball, but like understands like trends in the industry. Like in the future, where do you see, because like peptides are exploding right now. I think we've seen like even the last 3 or 4 years of like what we've seen for like where GLPs have come on the scene and like everything that has come out. What are you like the most excited about and seeing on the frontier of peptides? And I know we talked a lot today about, KLP-1, VD11, FOXO3 and some of those things. Like if you had a crystal ball with the industry, and especially like if you had like a hope of where it's going, what do you see like in the next 12 to 18 months of things like going towards becoming popular and people like really having good success with?
I think it's more of the combination of more like bioresonance work, combination of non-coherent EMF mitigation with your peptides, with your small molecules. So doing the things like putting your peptides in your Lila quantum block or using them, exposing them to the ARC technology or like all of these things. I think the small molecule world is accelerating so fast, it's only going to give us so much. And then everything else is holding us back. Like again, we have that frequency, that coded pattern in our brain that holds us back magnetically. So if that's not covered, you can only hypertrophy your pineal gland so much with epital and everything else out there. So I actually see it be the merging of everything. I just got a new bioresonance machine, so you can listen to it. It'll basically pick up on the frequencies, scan an area. If there's an inconsistent frequency, it can send the proper frequency to scan that and make it better. Like we have all these technologies. Imagine, and they work amazing by themselves. Peptides and small molecules work amazing by themselves. I see it as the mergence of everything. So I really see like that as being the future because like Dr. Small, who he does stuff with like RFK and all that cool stuff. Like again, we all know him, super nice guy. The way that that's gone, like that's been all like people don't know this, but that's the bioresonance work. That's like all this quantum based stuff that the general public thinks is kind of woo-woo crazy. If that's what people like him are doing and other people at that level, something's there. And then as small molecules are now rising up in popularity, once you combine them, that's I think when you really see the magic. So I think with AI as well and how everyone's progressing, everything's excelling at such a fast rate. it's going to be that emergence of, we're going to find that one peptide in that one machine. And that's going to be the thing that will fix everyone's pineal gland or heart or like whatever the problem is. I think it's going to be that combination. Because the peptide has the signal and then essentially everything else to manage how that signal gets received, transmitted, and then projected. So I think I really think that's the future. It
sounds like too, like more upstream stuff. Even if we talk about like KLP-1 and some of these other things, upstream stuff that trickles down into like almost every system to where it's like now in like with peptides, a lot of them are like strong chemical signals in one pathway, which can be good, but it's also like really strong down that one pathway. Okay, I got the fat loss I wanted, but now I've got these side effects because I lost weight too fast. You know, just like we like modulate some of these more upstream things for overall health and longevity. And then that kind of builds a better foundation to which then we don't have to use huge doses of a GLP or whatever because everything else is going to be working so much better. So.
I really do think, just to add to that, I really feel like there is going to be one molecule. It's going to be a super molecule. It's not going to be naturally found. It's going to be a synthetic derivative. It's going to encompass everything we have right now with all of our molecular structures. So it's going to encompass stimulation of GLP, GIP, GCG. And there's been, again, I'm not working on anything like this, but other people I know that kind of are trying to do, they're calling it a super molecule. That's already in the works. Like there's nothing concrete, nothing yet. But I've always thought that's it's going to go to where people will take one thing. And it's essentially replacing everything we're taking now. I don't know when that would be, if it's 5 years, 10 years, but like that is also where I think it's going to go. So it's going to be like that there's going to be one therapy and there's going to be one molecule. And that's what's going to cause a lot of our, species to evolve. And that's that kind of the creepy thing. Sorry to drag this out.
No, keep going. Yeah, this is great.
If you look at history, anytime there was a revolution, it always happened when 50% of the population became educated. So what happens if all of a sudden there's one super molecule and one bioresonance arc machine, whatever, right? That fixes everything. All of a sudden people kind of start to see, question, think, people start to learn. And then what would that revolution look like in today's society? Because it's not back in the day. It's not that simple.
We're not going to like storm the gates anymore.
Exactly. Like, you can't do that.
Be kind of fun, but
but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be on the front line. But seriously, like what would that look like? And I think, I mean, it probably be a lot of chaos, which would be terrible. But it also would be cool because like, to me, there's that next level, what you're trying to achieve. And I think that's going to be a big step in like the human evolution.
I think too, to that point, maybe you look at revolutions, the nature of revolutions. Thus far, at least in like our recorded history, it's been concrete. It's like maybe now it starts to move into the abstract information type realm. It's like now the revolution will take place through information rather than through like physical domination. Because that's typically been like resources, physical domination, like the way that revolutions take place. And it's like the fight over that. Whereas so now maybe it's like more in the information-esque space. Like we're playing with these molecules and we like find, obviously like there will be a physical component of it. We're playing with these molecules to like accelerate human intelligence in a way that's not like the transhumanist way, but a way that's like maybe like more of a return to real human, like like kind of like we talked about with some of the magnetic stuff today, like real human nature that then allows people to understand who they truly are. Because I think a lot of bad health things, it's like people have forgotten what their real power is because it's been like, conditioned out of us. So I'm excited too. I think there's a lot of work. I'm excited to know people like you to be able to bring this out there. And I hope this will kind of help shift people's perspective on that sense, because, it's easy to like in the day to day to get caught up in like, this molecule, that molecule, but like broad spectrum, like, if we zoom out, what is it really about? It's about making people healthier, having better lives, like becoming more like ourselves, connecting better with other people. And then like in this earth school, learning the lessons that we're supposed to learn and not regressing and have to like get kicked back to learn them again. So
I mean, seriously, like this should be a positive, fun experience. If you're taking peptides, seeing negative side effects, if you're doing anything and seeing negative side effects from it, something's wrong. Like life should not be that serious. That's why I don't get mad at stuff. I don't like get involved in drama because it's just like, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. It did when I was younger. Like I was a high head when I was younger, but like you mature, you're adult, you're like, it's just, everyone says life's so short and I'm the opposite. I'm like, life's eternal. Like no matter what you believe in, there's something after this. So I spend any second of that less than 100% happy. And life's going to happen, like you said, but like, just be less serious about it. It makes life so much more fun. Then progress picks up and then everyone's happier. Like it's win-win.
Yeah. Enjoy the ride. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that is it. Thanks guys. Let us know your thoughts and feedback on this one. Obviously, Alex is a genius. You can go check him out. All his places. It's the best place, TPC Army on School, to go check out your private group and everything.
Yeah, school.com/TPC Army and then the prepcoach.com for inquiries and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I'm in the group myself. Taylor and I are in there, and it is a wealth of information. I highly recommend everyone check that out if you want the real stuff and not that vanilla stuff you're going to get on all the top 10 podcasts and everything. So not that those are bad, but anyway, thank you guys. Alex, thank you so much. It's always a joy and pleasure and grateful to call us, or for us to call you our friend. So thank you
guys. Thank you, Alex.
Peace.